Good evening, everyone. My name is Mitch Cohen, and I chair the Northborough Select Board. It is Monday, the 10th of March, 2025. It is 7 p.m., and I will call this meeting to order. I have an opening script because we have one member who is remote. This open meeting of the Northborough Select Board is being conducted in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Select Board are allowed and encouraged to participate either in person or remotely. The Act allows the Northborough Select Board to meet entirely in person and remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream or the recording of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. When I call your name, if you could confirm that you can hear and be heard, and we will do this with in-person as well as remote members. Lisa, can you hear us?
I can. I'm here.
Excellent. Laura?
I'm here.
Julianne?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
And I can also hear me. And also with us is Steph Bacon, Town Administrator.
Hello.
Okay, so we have a full agenda tonight, and we are being recorded, if you did catch that during the opening statement. First item, as always, is public comment. Is there anyone in the audience, either in person or remote, that wishes to offer any comment or suggestions or ideas to us? Other than things that are on the agenda, because as always, if you want to talk about an agenda item, you can do that during that item. But Gib, sure.
Thank you.
All right, if you could identify yourself and let us know what's on your mind.
What's that?
Identify yourself, although we know you, of course, and let us know what's on your mind, please.
I know myself. Gib Chase, 6 Kimball Lane, down in the Juniper Brook development. With the annual meeting, I guess about a little more than a month away, again, I was going to try to ask you to respectfully request to limit the number of articles on this year's warrant and to include only the real needs and reject or prohibit items of non-basic service needs. And, this to me would include many of the vehicles that we've seen each year with DPW, and I probably, there's probably 3 or 4 that are still being put on there this year. They have a whole new fleet of vehicles. I don't see the justification for it. Also, I set in on the Blake and Pierce Street beautification and upgrade project design concepts, and, I don't have anything, to criticize the concept or I just think it's a bad timing for this, and I don't want to really see $3 million spent, taxpayer dollars, on that proposal at this time. The same with the Massachusetts Development Incentive Program that we set in on the designation of the TIF areas. Review of 30 communities that have implemented this have shown that it really doesn't work. And, we are really stretching the limit on the resident taxpayers' financial security here in town. And nationally, we've got a financial crisis, and I think we have to be a little more prudent on what we just throw out there to the public. We've unfortunately approved the Proposition 2.5 bypass that's increased our depth and tax levy. This is the 100% of the cost for this fire station has been laid out on the resident taxpayers over a 30-year period. This is pretty uncommon to go for that extensive time period on a capital project cost item of this extreme. It's not uncommon to have overrides, but to put it out for 30 years where you can keep increasing the tax levy on people. It's a permanent increase really on it. It enables you to increase the tax levy, and I don't think we can sustain anything on that. I've long advocated for a steady state growth economic strategy and transition. A The Center for Steady State Economic Growth down in Virginia has recently submitted an act to the U.S. Senate and Congress on this. I don't know if it'll get very far with this administration, but again, we need to reduce departmental budgets. My request for audits on the repeated requests over the last 4 or 5 years for audits on the DPW have gone unanswered. A report on the illegal use of a dump truck out of state there almost 2 years ago is gone unanswered. And I have real concerns with the way that department is being operated and the expense. I want to know the expense of a lot of the contract work going out and just how the money's being spent. And I'd like to get some information back on the illegal use, potential illegal use of that vehicle. This was on a Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock out of state. About 55 miles from
We
here.
try to limit comments to 3 minutes, if you could do me a favor.
What's that?
We try to limit comments to 3 minutes so we can
Yeah, I
move
know.
along. If you could
I know.
do us a favor and wrap it up.
There's a lot of ways that the town can reduce spending costs with pension reform, salary reductions, put a cap on the school budgets, reduce spending for vehicles, employing AI technology, cost sharing and working cooperatively with other communities. There's a whole litany of ways to try to reduce the financial burden on the taxpayer. And I'd like to see some of that implemented or at least prioritized if we can. I don't know where your priority and goals are either we haven't really finished that yet, I don't think, and that would be helpful also. Thank you, that's all I have to say. Anybody got any questions?
If you want, you feel free to email that to us. And on the truck, I remember some of the details being looked into.
I've put it in writing about 3 different times, and also
Yep.
we had a lot of, you were going through town administrator hiatus there, where you're going through about 3 or 4, but,
Yeah.
you know, I've kept that alive again,
I
quite
haven't heard
frankly.
anything in a while, and I
haven't-
take concern about accusing town staff members of
I don't want to
operating
bring,
illegally.
I don't want to bring it up every damn time, Mitch.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things going on that I don't like. I don't want to air them here necessarily. I'd like to see it taken care of. I don't like the idea of a facilities manager being, that job position being created and put over there. And I don't know if that has family connections or not. If it does, it needs to be disclosed and it needs to be taken care of and corrected immediately on it.
Do
things
me a
like
favor,
that.
put some questions in writing. That is the best way that Steph can respond
Well, I
to it.
have, but I've never got anywhere.
Not with me,
Yeah.
not
So-
with me. You've never asked me these questions.
Are you that bad? Are you really gonna
All
be?
right, Gib, why don't we wrap up?
Yeah, the questions about a truck,
These were on file, hon. I've
right,
put in several.
All right, so
written-
Julianne, did you have a question
Okay.
for
I
Gib?
put in several.
The steady state growth bill that group wants the Senate to address?
I can give you a whole,
Yeah.
I've got 27 pages on that.
Okay.
That's what was
I hope
written.
it's double-spaced.
It doesn't mean no growth. It means managed growth.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
All right.
And I've given you information on that too, but I will, Julianne.
Thank
I'll
you.
give you that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, Gib.
and please send me any emails you think you've sent me
I will,
about those
Steph.
topics, because one thing, I always get back to everybody, so this is news to me. I've never heard of the truck. I've never heard of a complaint about the facilities manager, so
Yeah.
Doesn't the chairman talk to you?
I've never heard anything about the facilities manager, and I thought the truck issue was closed a year and a half ago.
Never heard back.
Good.
Kim was gonna take it up, but then he got, I think, misdirected.
Why
and
don't you-
different things, but,
Why don't you
know,
send Steph a note,
Again,
and
with
she'll be able
all,
to
with all
forward
the
you
money
information
being
that's
spent
there.
there, and when you're asking, you know, for millions of dollars, I think you probably got 3 or 4 trucks on the warrant this year.
We do?
I don't think they should be on there. We got, the taxpayers got enough to deal with.
All right.
And the trucks that we have,
We need to move
Yeah, I
along
mean,
with the meeting.
respectfully, we're
Yeah.
well past 3
trucks
minutes.
that we have can be, you know, used, put more mileage on them.
Thank
We'll
you.
work on it.
Lisa, I see your hand up. Did you have something you wanted to address before we continued with public comment?
Yeah, I see Julianne's mic facing you and I can hardly hear her.
Oh, okay. Thanks for pointing that out. Laura, maybe just looking at the microphones, maybe bring yours in a little bit too. All right, thanks for catching that. It's helpful to have someone remotely listening and providing feedback. Is there anyone else, either in person or remote, that has public comment at this time? Going once, going twice, public comment is closed. Next up, we've got 2 sets of meeting minutes. First is the February 12th, 2025, which was joint with the planning board for an appointment. Would someone like to make a motion on that one? Perhaps Mike?
Sure. I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes from February 12th, 2025 joint meeting with the planning board as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Did I attend that meeting?
I
on
think
February
you
12th?
did. The next one, you were, the 24th, you came in late.
Okay. Aye.
Yeah, okay,
Aye.
okay, and you abstained,
I'm going to
correct?
abstain, please.
Yep.
I was not
Yep.
available for that
Lisa?
meeting.
Aye.
I vote aye. Vote is unanimous, technically is unanimous in favor with 1 abstention.
Aye,
And
Mr. Chair. The copy I have doesn't have names on the motions, so that's why I
okay, yeah, I think it has names on the votes. That was a joint meeting, was done a little bit differently. Do we know if the planning board has already approved that set? They have not. They have not, okay.
right, your motions don't have names on them.
Oh, the motion, those motions, sorry, I thought you meant.
Yeah,
the
my
motions.
copy just doesn't have, mind if I copy yours real quick, Julian? Just so I have it. That's why I was late
Okay,
making that motion.
okay, gotcha. All right, so I think we're good. Motion passes. Next up, we have February 24th, 2025, meeting minutes. Would someone like to make
For the motion or discussion?
make a motion first, and if there's discussion, or if you prefer, if you think we should hold them, say that.
Well, I was just looking at the paragraph that talked about the creation of a municipal REITs committee. And there's a paragraph that said the board agreed to revisit the topic at the next meeting. And Chair Cohen and Administrator Bacon will draft a potential committee charge for review. The board also wanted to consider ideal qualifications for committee members.
Yep. So Steph and I've had
It's on
some,
the agenda. It's probably not going to be talked about tonight,
correct.
but I don't remember that we had agreed to that. I just thought we discussed it.
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate the way that I remember it.
That we agreed to revisit, but I don't think we agreed to accept the committee yet.
We agreed that we needed to have a charge before we'd vote on it.
Well, that part's true,
Yeah,
but I didn't, it's not on this agenda, so that's why.
it's correct. We're not dealing with that item tonight. All right,
Then I move the board to approve the meeting minutes from February 24th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Yeah.
okay. Motion made by Lisa, seconded by Julianne for the 24th. I think we're going to have to revisit the February 12th in just a second.
Okay.
We'll go back to that momentarily, but we have a motion, so let's deal with that. Any comments or questions on the February 24th meeting minutes? Okay. All those in favor? Lisa?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. And this
Okay.
is all set. I made a mistake.
Oh, okay.
Just disregard.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Good catch and good catch. All right, so are we all set?
We're
on
all
the
set.
12th? Okay,
Yeah.
there was some initial confusion on the stage here. We got it sorted out, so we will not be revisiting the February
Nope.
24th. All good.
Thank you.
Next up, we have consideration and approval of 3 different license requests. First, we have a common vic license for Square Slice Ventures LLC at 309 Main Street. Is there someone here? Come on up. I will say we are very excited. We've heard very, very good things, but why don't you tell us about yourself, tell us the business that you're opening, and we'll get into the details.
Sure. My name is Troy Sproul, and I represent Square Slice Ventures. Blue Square Pizza is the DBA. We have a location in Hopkinton. I've been in the industry for 17 years. I own 4 other franchises of a different concept in Boston called Auto Pizza. I worked for that company for 9 years as a regional ops manager. Blue Square Pizza is a sourdough pizza concept that focuses on 4 unique styles of pizza. So we're ranging from Chicago to Detroit to New York. And so really coming to market with a very unique offering, and we're really, really excited to bring that to the community.
Great.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I love pizza.
So you mentioned, is this a franchise?
No.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
corporate owned, yeah.
Corporate owned along with the other one. That's great. I will say that initially, when people heard another pizza place is opening up, the instinct is, oh, another pizza place, because we have some great pizza places here. I like this is distinct. This is a different type of pizza place.
Indeed, I think it complements, the existing legacy pizzerias for sure, and I think we proved that in Hopkinton as well. So offering to diverse, flavors. Some people like it, some don't, but I think, we had a nice complementary offering to the market.
Great. Open up to questions from the board.
When are you hoping to open?
Hopefully May 1.
Perfect.
Do you have a ribbon cutting planned or anything like that?
Not yet, but
Okay.
I'm working on it with the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. Oh, good.
So I just have a question. So, for me, pizza's all about the dough. And that's 3 different, thin to thick kind of dough, right?
Yeah.
So do you have to have different ovens?
We do, actually. So different oven settings. So we're really crust forward. We take a bread baker's approach to our pizza. So what we want is, our New York style to be really kind of eggshell crispy but soft and tender in the middle. And then we have focaccia style, like Detroit style pizza, that's really focaccia style. And then we do it like a Chicago cracker thin that is very thin and crackery and flaky. All of those styles require different bake temperatures, bake times, and different fermentation procedures behind those styles. So one universal dough, but all kind of
It's all
treated differently.
I see.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
No, I mean, I would say I'm kind of a pizza connoisseur, being from Jersey originally, so I look
Nice.
forward to
Yeah.
to sampling. So,
Excellent.
We need New Jersey style now.
well, New York too, same difference.
So hopefully May 1st, if everything comes together. I don't think I had any other questions. I will entertain a motion.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the application for a common victular license as submitted by Square Slice Ventures LLC for premises located at 309 Main Street.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Laura, seconded by Mike. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Laura?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Congratulations. Please let us know. You can let us know through the office that you've been communicating with definitively when you open up, because we want to be there and
Excellent.
try out your pizza and
Awesome.
be part of the ribbon cutting process if we can, and all those good things.
Sounds great. Appreciate that.
Congratulations
Thank you so
and
much.
best
Yeah,
of luck.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Thank you. Next up, we have a special one-day license for First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church at 40 Church Street. If applicants can come forward. I live across the street from this church, so I'm going to recuse myself from this item. I don't think legally I have to, because I couldn't imagine there's any financial connection there. But just for clarity's sake, I'm going to recuse myself, hand
Okay.
the gavel over to Laura.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm Adi Pandit, 4 Asapet Hill Circle, Northborough. I'm a member of the First Parish Northborough Church, and we have started an initiative called Meeting House Art Center, where we do open mics, concerts, art exhibitions in our space. As part of that, this Saturday on 15th March, we are doing a concert by L&M Rhythm Kings. It's a blues and roots concert. And we are trying to get some local brewery, Flying Dreams Brewery from Marlborough, to come and serve beer to the concert attendees. So that's why we have applied for this license.
Does anybody have any questions?
How's the art center going?
It's going good, yeah. So we have done two concerts up till now. Kara Brindisi, who was on The Voice from Shrewsbury, that was a big hit. We had like 80 attendees. Then we did the local artists Lori Diamond and Freda Batele. During winter, it was a holiday concert. So we get attendance of people ranging from 40 to 60 people. Our open mic has a good cadence now. We have some regular audience with a good mix of poetry, comedy, and music going on. So, yeah.
Thank you for doing that. That's great for the town.
Yep,
Thank you.
I agree.
I see the events going from 6 to 10.
The concert will be from 7 to 9.
Okay.
But as a buffer, I put in there because we'll open around 5:30. So that's why we put in the timing 1 hour before and after the event.
Okay, and then what are the hours of serving?
Hours of serving half an hour before the concert and half an hour after the concert.
So like
So-
6:30?
So it'll be 6:30 to 9:30.
Is the serving hours?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
No?
So I think I saw in the packet that Chief Griffin was okay with this?
Yes,
Was
it
there
was
any
run
other-
through the whole department heads. Yep.
Perfect. So it sounds like there's no other questions. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I would, Madam Chairman. I move the board vote to approve the application for our special one-day license as submitted by Aditya Pandit on behalf of First Parish Church Unitarian Universalist for an indoor event at 40 Church Street on Saturday, March 15th, 2025, between the hours of 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. with the following conditions. The license shall include the 24-hour period immediately before and after each event in order to allow for the proper delivery and disposal of all alcoholic beverages. Proper signage posted and approved barriers installed notifying guests that alcohol must be contained in the designated area only. Satisfactory inspections shall be performed prior to the start of the first event by the fire, building, and health departments.
Second.
I forget what to say now. Can we do a roll call vote, please? Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Laura? I wish you the best with the event.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you for all you do.
Is that okay?
Sounds great to me.
Okay.
All right. Concludes that one. And next up, we have a transportation livery license, livery or livery? License for urgent transit at 6 Maple Street. Come on up. You could identify yourself and let us know a little bit about your business.
Yes, my name is Hector Iber, and I'm one of the owners of Urgent Transit, and I'm new in Northborough. And yeah, we're also new in the area. And me and one of my partners decided to start this venture, seeing the need for transit when it comes to non-emergency transportation services. I'm a little bit nervous.
Don't be.
Yeah.
We're a friendly group of
Yeah,
people.
non-emergency transportation services, such for the elderly, such for the veterans, anybody with dialysis, anybody in the handicap need is what we're here for. And just kind of saw the need, and here we are today.
If I could, how does your business operate? You know, we have a senior center van program, which you're
Yep.
probably familiar with.
Yep.
Obviously, there's, Uber and Lyft in town and things like that. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Also to help promote your business. What do you
Yeah,
do?
absolutely. So our main focus is the handicap services that we carry. All our transportation vans are all handicap equipped. So for a team, we go after nursing homes, hospitals, mini clinics, airport right now. It's kind of one of the biggest ones we have at the moment. And we do work with Mart, which handles over anything with Medicaid and Medicare. So, yeah, handicap is pretty much what we have. And, yeah, our vans we have 5 right now, and they're in different locations. We usually see them in Northborough for Friday payroll when we study them and we see how they're doing with the drivers and all that kind of stuff. So our office is right.
And if somebody needed a ride, do they typically call you directly, or is it through an agency?
Yeah, they cut 2 ways. They can call us directly, and they usually, a bunch of our clients come from MART, which is the Massachusetts Regional Transportation Services. So we go straight through them a lot. So they give us a lot of contracts. We bid a lot of contracts through them.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
How many vehicles will you be parking at 6 Maple Street?
So at 6 Maple Street, there'll be one, which is our backup in case one of them breaks at all times. So no vehicles will be parked there because they stay with our drivers, our employers. So they're usually on the road in different towns. So they come every Friday in and out, just so we can verify the miles, kind of do an inspection of the vehicle before each driver gets paid. And at the moment, we have 2 service stations, one in Ashland and the other one in Northborough, the Gulf gas station. So we'll be using some local stations as we grow our fleet.
Where are the vehicles registered for tax purposes?
Northborough.
Excellent.
Yeah. All in Northborough. Our office is in Northborough, too. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Great. Laura?
Thank you. How long have you been in business? Is this new?
So I've been in I own different businesses, and this
Okay.
is the first one with Urgent Transit. I have opened 3 different car dealerships.
Okay.
And I'm slowly going away from the car sales in different towns that I'm in. So I've been in business about 15 years, and this new venture is completely new.
I wish you the very best.
Yeah, my business partner's been in business 7 years, and he used to work for MART, which is the Massachusetts Authority of Transportation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just one question. It says in the written material, vehicles parked on premise once every 2 weeks for visual inspection, interior, exterior. So when you say parked, right, it's not for the day or something like that. As you said, it's visually inspect interior, exterior for safety, pay the drivers, and then they're on their way.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Is it 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, or every week?
Well, it depends on the hire.
Okay.
So it could be weekly or biweekly, but as we grow the fleet, I'm sure it's gonna be almost every Friday that they come in. We're gonna be able, as we grow, we're gonna be including direct pay and doing visuals via Zoom and stuff like that. Has a lot of drivers are in Boston as well, or in Springfield. So for those reasons, a lot of the times I know I'll be doing visual inspections via video.
Okay.
But yeah, at our location right now, there'll be one, which is like our backup for anything that breaks down. And usually that doesn't happen because with MART, all our vehicles got to be within 5 years old. Anything after 5 years has got to get replaced per their policies. So we got to keep up with them.
And are they like converted minivans, or are they more like a bus type vehicle? What kind of vehicles are
they're
they?
the Chrysler. They're the Chrysler
Okay, like
Voyagers.
Voyagers,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, completely. And
Gotcha.
the Chrysler sells it to Mobility Works, which is a nationwide company, and Mobility Works is the company that does all the transformation into handicap.
Okay.
And it fits two wheelchairs if need with an escort in case the patient wants somebody with them as well.
Great. Thank you. Lisa, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi. Do you do your inspections during the day? There's no evening inspections or late night inspections? I would
Yeah.
think with lighting,
Yeah, everything will be during the day, working hours.
just during working hours?
Yeah,
That's
during
like
working-
Monday through Friday?
Excuse me?
Monday through Friday?
No, usually it's gonna be on Fridays when the drivers get paid.
So, and that's like all during the day, it's just varied hours during the day? Or do they all 5 come in at one time and then leave?
Oh, no, yeah, that's during the day. Took me a second to understand the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while they're only there for a half hour, an hour each?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it can take less than a half an hour for me to do a visual inspection with my team, so it doesn't have to be that long neither. It's a visual inspection just to make sure the car is clean. There's, any scratches, any tires, anything that Mart Transportation Company will kind of come after us and give us kind of like a penalty for. So seatbelts, anything missing, anything broken, windshields cracked, stuff like that. We can get penalized for anything of that when they do an audit and they kind of randomly do a checkup on the drivers when they're dropping off or picking up a client.
Okay, and you'll be there for the week because you rent the office space.
That is correct.
You'll have one vehicle there in addition to yours, that's part of the company.
Yeah, I have my own personal vehicle. And the one that sits there, it's for exactly these reasons. In case we get a windshield cracked or a bad tire or a mechanical issue, we can just kind of replace it and kind of keep the bands going at all times.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Julianne?
So do the drivers park their vehicle at their home?
Yes, they take them with them. We have clients as early as 4 a.m. for some dialysis that the drivers need to be on the road for a 5 a.m. pickup or a 5:30 a.m. pickup to be at the, wherever they need to be. So yeah, the vans stay with them,
Sounds
which
like
is
a
why
great-
we do random inspections too, because drivers can, they have them. So you don't know if they're driving them at night. There's a lot of things we can prevent. But with the new systems, there's going to be cameras and audio inside of these vans coming up soon. Per the state company that we work with, they're now demanding that for the safety of everybody.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many or how much of your business comes out of Northborough pickups and Northborough service, roughly?
So when we started, we had to be a year before we signed up with Mart. So I did a lot of door knocking in some of the clinics, and there's quite a few nursing homes here. So we got calls right away. Every nursing home anywhere around here, they have their own van, one van usually parked, but they don't usually have a driver available, maybe like a part-timer. So we got quite a calls, and in order to be able to receive the payments through Medicaid, Medicare, we have to be with Mart. They're the ones that give us that option. So it's kind of tough when we're not, because it's pretty much a private ride that you pay out of pocket. So for some clients that didn't work out, but yes, we did receive quite a nice welcome in some of the nursing homes we visited in Northborough
Oh, okay.
and Marlboro.
So would you say like 50% of your rides are are Northborough, or 75, or just curious percentage-wise if you knew?
No, I would say at the moment, I would say probably 20%.
20%,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because you're from Springfield to Boston, right?
Yeah,
Is that
so
what you said?
our biggest competitor is out of Boston, and they have about 65 vans that we know about, and that's the only competitor, and they don't come out here. So there was a huge need anywhere from Springfield to Franklin to Hollis, all the way up to here. And that's where our focus is, kind of like the Metro West area. And there was a big gap in the need, and the more we talked to, people, the more we saw that, oh my God, there's nobody around here. And that company that's in the Boston area does not take trips over here. They just very focused to staying over there.
Have you been in touch with our senior center? About-
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Great. Good,
Correct, yeah,
good.
we've done a lot of emails. Yeah,
Good. Yeah, because, I mean, they take full use of the great senior center van service, but you offer something that sounds like it's not quite 24/7, but a much wider variety of hours.
yeah.
And do your drivers help the passengers, into their appointment and out of their house and onto the van?
Correct, those are all three different ways. So there's a door-to-door, which is you just wait in the car, you let the client know that you're outside. Door through door, you actually get out of the van, you go help them inside, put them outside, take them out of the van, bring them into their off visit. But yeah, we have all those sorts of services.
Excellent, that's good
Yep.
to hear. Very good.
The only question I had, there was a zoning interpretation from the building inspector. He approved it with the following conditions: that vehicles may not be parked at 6 Maple Street, and vehicle repairs or inspections may not take place at the business location. So,
Yeah, so we do have on record right now 2 local service stations.
okay,
That
so
do
that's
all-
the Gulf that you were
Yeah,
referring to?
Golf and Excel. Those
Okay.
are the names. I can provide names and addresses to the ones that are gonna be there, to the ones where we're gonna bring them. So yeah, we don't
And-
do any mechanical services.
So, okay.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the concerns if you did maintenance,
Yeah.
out
Right.
in the
Yeah, no.
yard or,
Nor the facility that we're parked at is just a second office suite. So outside is just regular parking for anybody, so we don't.
You're not climbing under them and changing the oil.
No, 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 no. I don't do that either. Probably be the last time that changes the oil on that one.
Lisa?
I have two questions, and this is one you may or may not know the answer to, but maybe Steph does. How long is the livery license? Is it a year, 2 years, 5 years,
It's every 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, that we have to
Okay,
renew.
and then what I would recommend is that we also put the following conditions on the motion that that Steph just read on the memo.
Oh, about repair and
It
inspection?
said, vehicles may not be parked at 6 Maple Street, and vehicle repairs or inspections may not take place at the business location.
When he says inspections, is that referring to like state inspection or just
I
the
think
visual?
that meant his visual inspections, right? Was,
No, that meant state inspection, like actually getting some work done to the vehicle. I'm not. I mean, I'm doing the visual inspection of the vehicle, not like hands-on fixing stuff. Is that?
okay.
I think if there's already a zoning interpretation, so that is in effect no matter what. I don't think we would need to make our license.
You don't need to amend the
conti-
motion.
I don't think we need to make it contingent upon those items because those concerns come under Bob's responsibility and,
And I know from Diane, it's an annual license anyway, so
Okay.
it has to be,
okay.
right.
Are you comfortable with not amending the motion?
As long as, I mean, it's voiced here tonight, I would, as long as, we don't see it parked at, the cars parked at 6
Right.
Maple.
Yeah, so the zoning restriction means that our building inspector has said, you can't do that.
Okay.
And that is independent of us putting a condition into a license.
Right.
It's just our town zoning bylaws, what they allow and what they don't allow. So I don't, my take is I don't think, it wouldn't hurt if we wanted to mirror it. My concern is that we don't mirror it precisely. So I think if we defer to the building inspector for the zoning interpretation, which
Well,
by
we
law
already
we do.
did, we passed it through,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was his only caveat.
Okay.
Okay, so can we just review? Usually on Friday,
Yep.
one of your drivers comes to 6 Maple. You might pay them that day. You look at the vehicle, make sure it's clean, there's no broken windows, it's like a,
Yep.
just.
No scratches, no
Yeah.
dents.
Like a
tires
rental
are
car
good.
inspection, right?
Correct.
Walking
Could
around
you
it.
walk around, just
Right.
make sure?
That's good.
Yes. Yeah, exactly like that. That's exactly what we're doing. Sorry, I didn't know that word.
No, that was popped in my head.
I haven't rented a car in a very long time, but yeah, you're right. I seen it before. So yeah, it's just like a car rental company. When you turn in your rental back, just go walk around, check off everything, and move on.
Okay, and you probably check mileage, and then they go home.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the interpretation says you can't park vehicles there. Did you say you will have one?
Yeah, I have one always as backup, but
Okay, that's
since-
always there at 6 Maple?
Yeah, I can use it and I can have it with one of the drivers.
I would work with our building inspector and make sure that that's allowed.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's not up to us to decide. We don't have that authority.
Okay.
He
Yeah, that's fine.
interprets
Yeah.
our bylaws.
Yeah, we have locations where the van can go, so
Okay.
we're not worried.
Yeah, that's just, I don't want to.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't want to see you get in trouble.
Yeah, no,
um,
absolutely.
Or anything like that. I want to see you have nothing but success. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the application for a transport livery license as submitted by Urgent Transit for premises located at 6 Maple Street.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mike, seconded by Laura. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Mike?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Without the conditions being put in, no.
I'll vote aye. Vote is 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Again, I suggest to, work with Bob on just making sure that doing everything kosher there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back and talk to Bob or email?
Yeah, just email or call Bob Frederico, the building inspector. I assume you've already spoken with
Yes,
him.
I have.
Yeah, you won't have to deal with us again.
Okay, talk about the
yeah.
same van or?
Yeah, just make sure that what you described to us today as to how you intend to operate is consistent with our bylaws, and he is the one who interprets that as building commissioner.
Okay, sounds good.
Technically, a zoning enforcement officer is one of his titles.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for choosing Northborough.
No,
Good
absolutely.
luck.
Thanks, congratulations.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
I need to stay.
No,
If you want
it's a
to.
public meeting, it's very exciting
I'm not trying to
stuff.
punish you.
I
You
got a
can leave.
3-year-old son.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good
Hey,
night.
thanks so much.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
See you soon.
All right, next up, we have planning director. Come on up, we've got a couple of things for you. We've got grant activities first. We like grants.
All right. Thank you. So of course, all of you, I believe, attended the community workshop on the downtown streetscape project that we had a couple of weeks ago. So it was well attended. We had approximately 50 people there. For the audience who may not be aware, what I'm talking about is a project that is centered on Blake Street in the downtown, as well as the portion of Pierce Street that extends from its intersection with Blake to what I call the War Memorial Park. So what is being proposed is significant improvements to the Pocket Park at the corner of Route 20 and Blake Street, to the right-of-way of Blake Street, the municipal parking lot that's often associated with 4 West Main Street, and the Pierce Street right-of-way and the parking lot associated with the War Memorial Park. So some of the improvements that we are proposing are green infrastructure improvements, bioswales, removing some of the impervious surface to put in some street trees and plantings, significant sidewalk improvements, replacing the existing sidewalk on the west side of Blake Street with a concrete sidewalk and vertical granite curb, adding a sidewalk where one does not currently exist on the east side of Blake Street, and then carrying that sidewalk all the way down to the War Memorial Park. So currently there is a gap in the sidewalk network there. So our neighbor, 10 and 14 Blake Street, is also interested in making some improvements to their property. They're kind of blurred out in this image because it's still a work in progress. We are still communicating with the property owner, and we're trying to finalize what they're interested in doing on their property. So this isn't a cheap endeavor. You will have seen that I submitted a warrant article request for $1,850,000. It was a bit of a challenge to come up with a dollar figure at this point because we're only at the 25% design phase. And when I had to submit that warrant article, it was prior to that community outreach meeting. So there were some design feedback that we received at that event, which is going to cause alterations in the design. So the dollar figure, the ultimate dollar figure for the project, we anticipate to be in the neighborhood of 2.1 million. But that number will be refined as the design progresses. So of course I understand that the town just approved a fire station, which is not a cheap project. So I thought it prudent to do what I can to reduce the burden to the taxpayers. So there are grants that I am looking to apply for. The one that is coming up the fastest is called an MVP grant. So that grant is focused on climate resilience. And It would essentially fund a lot of the landscaping improvements that are proposed here, the pergola, the porous pavers, the street trees, the bioswales, the sidewalks. I'm looking to fund those with the Complete Streets grant that we have been talking about for a couple of years now. And then I'm also exploring some other grant possibilities. Many of these grants are due within the next couple of months. So they give you a very, very short window from when they release the grant to when the application is due. So that's the case with the MVP grant. It was released last week, and they give you a 6-week window to get everything in. The reason why I'm here before you this evening is to ask for your support for these grant activities having to do with this specific project. The dollar amount that I am asking for from the MVP grant is still a moving target because we're still in conversations with that property owner. The great thing about the MVP grant is it can also pay for improvements on private property. So if that property owner is interested in partnering with us, then I would like to submit a dollar figure, which would be improvements to her property. So that would be for the landscaping improvements. So I'm thinking about asking for between $750,000 and $1 million. Of course, grants are not guaranteed, so I don't know whether this grant application will be successful. But if it is, that would certainly reduce the burden for the taxpayers pretty significantly. The Complete Streets grant that I'm interested in applying for is the maximum that we are eligible for. It's $500,000. And I did tally up all the various line items, and it would be justified for us to apply for that amount. So anybody have any questions?
If, I want to try to understand the overall financial scope
Yeah.
of this, and I know the grants are a moving target, but what we can expect that the town may likely be responsible for out of this. So, you know, there's the big picture of this whole area, and I brought it up on the screen here. And so all the work, public and private and grants and everything else, and then what gets put on the taxpayers.
Yes.
Have a breakdown of that.
I did speak with the consultant team about also updating the cost estimate. So we're now shifting from the 25% design to the 50% design. And so they are going to be able to supply me with that number in advance of town meeting.
Right.
My concern is I don't want to say, well, we're definitely going to get these grants.
Right.
So that means the burden to the Northborough residents is going to be $1 million and not a penny more. I don't really feel comfortable saying that so early in the design process, also knowing that these grants are not guaranteed. So let's talk about that again in a month's time if we can.
Yeah, I think before we get to town meeting, to have at least the best guesses, understanding that we don't, you know, other people are deciding on the grants, and the grants that are decided upon after town meeting, we won't have the answer to.
Right.
On the 28th of April, we will get that afterwards. But we can say, we are applying for a grant for $500,000. If we get that grant, this 1.8 million is going to be reduced to 1.3. And I'm making up numbers, but maybe that's how it will sort out. And then it would be incumbent upon this board to formally change that, to formally say, yeah, even if 1.8 is approved at town meeting, your maximum budget from the general fund, from the fund appropriations from town meeting would then be 1.3. Again, if those numbers happen to, by some luck, be right.
Yes, and I do plan for the town meeting to do a presentation. So of course, at that point, I'll know exactly what I applied for because the MVP application is due on April 4th. The Complete Streets application is on May 1st, so I will be very comfortable with those numbers, and then I will have an updated cost estimate from the design team. So I'll be more comfortable with the cost from that perspective as well.
And I think it's also worthwhile to include any private funds that are being contributed in terms of the overall project scope. So the property owner that we've talked to, who owns the buildings on the backside of Lake Street, if they're putting some of their cash into this, I think that's important for us and for town meeting to understand, even though that doesn't appropriate, that's part of the partnership, it's part of the overall project value.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
Questions? Laura?
Are any of these grants federal? And is
The
there,
Complete Streets grant is federal. And so, of course, that comes from the Department of Transportation. There have, of course, been a lot of questions going back and forth. And at this point, we've been assured that the funding is still there. The MVP is state funding, and so that funding has already been approved.
okay. I don't have a lot of faith in federal grants right now with everything
Yeah,
that's happening.
We
I'm
just
sorry.
don't know. Would it be feasible, I know it's hard to do at town meeting, but for Complete Streets is something we should get. I mean, we're in that program. I think that the 500,000 is, shoot.
It's not competitive.
Right.
It's for.
They're waiting to write the
Northborough.
check to us. That if nothing happens that's crazy at the federal level, we have every reason to expect that. But I wonder if there's a way to put something in the presentation and in the budget that says, hey, if that goes away, this is the change that we would make. Because we're not going to be able to go back to town meeting and get another $500,000 if it doesn't happen. So I think isolating that project budget somehow is going to be important.
That's why I was so conservative with my town meeting ask. So as I mentioned, I believe the total project cost will be in the neighborhood of 2.1 million, but you see I asked for 1,850,000. So even though I'm asking, planning on submitting significantly more requests and grant applications, I don't want to be left holding the bag in the end. If worse comes to worse, so that's a $350,000 difference. So if worse comes to worse, I think we could just scale back the project. Like, for example, we could just do Blake Street and not do Pierce. I'd hate to do that because, of course, there's the gap in the sidewalk, but that is an option.
Are these grants, the MVP and Complete Streets, do they need to be appropriated at town meeting? 'Cause I know some grants are, some grants don't be.
No, so
Half
what
looking at
would,
Jason behind you.
what would happen? Oh,
Generally, we've heard some grant terms from time to time that require appropriation, and that's based on the state's requirements. And
Yep.
I'm sorry, I can't hear this. But under state statutes, appropriation is not required under the grant statute.
Okay, great.
And so it would be unlikely or unusual for a grant to be appropriated at town meeting.
Okay, good. So that way we don't have to think about that as one of the variable aspects.
I mean,
at
if
town
it
meeting.
were a term of the grantor,
Right.
that was a requirement, which we've seen with
Yep.
a landscape grant at one point in the past.
Mhm.
That's the only instance where I've seen that in the past.
Okay.
But,
So to clarify that, what you're saying is if we apply to these grants and get them, but then this does not pass town meeting, we still get the grants? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the MVP grant has a mandatory match of 10%. So the way that works, and also the Complete Streets doesn't have a mandatory match, but does want you to provide a match. So what I was going to provide for the match for the MVP grant was in-kind services. They do allow in-kind services. We did get the earmark, economic development earmark from the state for $30,000. And then we have some extra money that you had allocated. You had allocated $250,000, but the contract we signed with the Beta Group was only for $197,000, so we have some extra money there. So that's what I was proposing to use from the match. I wanted to put in the $500,000 complete streets to sweeten the pot. But I guess the long and short of it is that if the town doesn't appropriate funds, it'll be a very much scaled back project. Like maybe the only thing we could do is the pocket park and the parking lot, and that's it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, 500,000 doesn't go very far in this day
Sure.
and age.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And I wasn't able to attend the presentation, but I was able to watch the recording of it on an airplane during turbulence, and it was oddly calming while that was occurring. But it was a great presentation, and I know it just when there was a discussion of the grants and the max amounts that we were asking for, in the presentation, there was a discussion about the max, but then sort of like a realistic expectation of what we would get. Does that still hold? Like we're asking for 500, but I'm really only expecting 250. And
But
does
like
that-
I said, I like to be conservative because I've been in the case where particularly the cost estimates aren't always reliable. Because especially in today's economy, there are such great fluctuations, and of course you hear every single day about the tariffs and whether they're going on and they're going off and whether they're going to be on wood, and so it's kind of a weird time. So it's hard for me to really pin that price down at this particular point. I felt comfortable with the $1,850,000 as kind of a worst case scenario, and we'd still be able to cover and do a significant amount of improvements should we not get grants.
Okay.
But I'm hopeful that we will get grants because I think we have a really great project here.
I have a question. I think this might be for you, Stephanie. So this MVP grant that you're applying for, that you're applying for the max, could DPW also apply for a grant? Or like if Lori gets it, that's it for the town?
So the Complete Streets grant, I'm applying for the max, which is 500,000. For the MVP grant, I am not applying for the max.
What's the max?
So the maximum is $3 million, but they look at the specific tasks. So they want to know, okay, well, how much is it going to be for you to purchase and install 15 street trees? You know, how much is it going to be for you to build the bioswale? How much is the pergola cost? So the reason why I came up with the 750,000 is because I have that amount of work that they would fund, that they would consider fundable under their goals that they're trying to achieve, which are climate resiliency.
Where's the bioswale going?
It's, I can bring it over to you.
Is that the water runoff absorption?
So this is the municipal parking lot on Blake Street. So the parking lot is going to be super elevated so that all of the rainwater flow will go into this bioswale.
Thank you.
So then the answer to my question is.
So the one stop, you can only apply once a year, right?
So the one stop,
For the
I am
certain
not.
categories?
Yeah, so all of these grants, the Complete Streets has 2 different rounds per year, but all the others only have 1 round. The MVP is not part of the one-stop program. A lot of the one-stop grants don't apply because unfortunately, they would only work if we had a development proposal. So if, for example, the town decided to put 4 West Main Street out to bid, and a developer were to purchase it, and they wanted to develop it for mixed use, then we would have a project partner, and the number of grants would expand, that we
It's a
would be
whole different
eligible.
scope. Yeah.
But because we don't have a developer, working right here within the project scope, then we're not eligible for those grants. Or we're eligible, but not competitive.
Right.
This project is very exciting to me. I think it is consistent with what the town has pushed for as far as downtown revitalization. I'm concerned about the cost. I like the fact that you're thinking about grants to pay for, it sounds like potentially about half, close to half of the project. I think it would be helpful, maybe not tonight because we don't have the data to do that tonight, but sometime by town meeting, think about ways of breaking it down between what the taxpayer needs to fund and what we hope to get in grants, with the understanding that I'd rather not say, hey, taxpayer, if we don't get the grants, you'll pay for it. I'd rather say, this is what the taxpayer is going to be responsible for. Grant A will fund this other thing, and Grant B will fund this other thing. And if, it sounds like Grant A, the complete streets, barring the sky falling in Washington DC, should happen. But if that doesn't happen, we know what won't happen in the project. And the same with the MVP grant, that we will know roughly what the scope is that is part of that, and what the scope is for, for each of those, as a way of breaking it down, and then hopefully being able to present a much lower figure to town meeting. And I appreciate that, the safest thing to do to get this done is to appropriate all the amount of money at town meeting and to just not spend it when you get some grant. That's, particularly this year, I think going to be a harder ask
Okay.
for the town. It's my take. Mike?
Just in general with these grants, the MVP grant and the Complete Streets, kind of piggybacking off of Julianne's question, would things like, say, in Article 24, asking for $300,000 for improvements to, for the maintaining of 75 culverts, 32 miles of sidewalk, 292 drainage outfalls, would those...
Assabet Hill drainage.
Right, or, just as an example, like, would those grants apply to those aspects just in general?
So they're looking for improvements, so it wouldn't be like a maintenance type thing. They don't fund maintenance activities, but like a project where it would be eligible is like the fire department. The new fire station is proposing to do geothermal, I believe. So that is an eligible expense under the MVP grant, as is rooftop solar,
Okay.
as is, the electric charging stations, I believe, would be eligible under the green communities.
So the geothermal is interesting because if the federal money goes away for that, this may be another option.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I did actually last year ask about the fire station project, and they were kind of excited about that. So absolutely, the fire station is a project that could apply.
Excellent, good.
So, to Mike's point, for example, that's what I was concerned about, was the Assabet Hill drainage. That's a whole redo of that street,
Yeah, for $900,000?
not just maintenance. And it is a huge chunk of money. But we could still apply because you said the maximum we can apply for is 3 million.
Can you apply for multiple projects simultaneously?
You can. They end up competing against each other. So I think it unlikely
Okay.
that they would fund multiple projects. They don't have a huge pool of money each year. So if I remember correctly, they funded maybe 10 projects across the state last year. construction projects, and most of them seem to be in the area of 1 to 2 million.
Lisa has her hand.
Yeah. Julianne, you all set?
For the minute, yeah.
Lisa?
We've got a couple questions, actually more than I was starting with because of that last discussion. So you're saying that this MVP grant is probably once a year, is that correct?
It is once a year, yes.
And it could be used for the geothermal for the fire station as well as the solar?
It could.
So with that being such a high price, it would certainly be a better place to maybe put that funding. But then to go back to Complete Streets and talking about Assabet, the Complete Streets started 3 years ago, at least. And you had to have shovel ready, and it was supposed to be for sidewalks and connectivity, and connectivity to a school was a very important thing for that. And I had a resident come up to talk with me on that Friday night dinner, saying that he lived on Davis Street and didn't understand why he couldn't get the connection that they've been requesting for the last 5 years on Davis Street so that the kids could walk to Proctor. And when we did the Complete Streets grant and looked at it and had all the layout done, it was under the intention of doing sidewalks. And then it became part of this project. So I'm concerned about that because I think we have other things in town that have been requested for a longer period of time. I know it's a great project and I know it's going to look very lovely when it's done, but we're coming into times that are going to be so financially tight, and we don't know what the state's going to give or what the feds are going to give or how much everything's going to cost, that to put this kind of money into Lake Street, I'm having a hard time believing that that's going to stay looking lovely. Right now, the tracks always have trash on it. Nobody's going to go in there and clean that up. How is it going to be maintained? We have a problem with maintenance around the town. I have a lot of questions about this, and using grants that could be used in other places, I'm a little concerned about that.
When is the grant application deadline for the MVP?
It's
Or
the
Complete Streets?
MVP is due on April 4th.
Okay.
So the Complete Streets is due on May 1st.
Okay.
They do have another source of funding, Safe Routes to Schools, which
Yeah.
pays for sidewalks to schools. This is a sidewalks project, and it was the #1 rated priority in the prioritization plan.
But I think key to these is they need to be shovel-ready to apply for the grants. This one will be shovel-ready. The other sidewalks haven't been designed. So we would not be able to apply for those this year. It's possible in future years we could. If
Well,
those were the,
it's only up to 5. I thought it was 100,000 a year, isn't it?
It's 500,000 within
500,000 a
a
year,
4-year period of time.
Sorry? I didn't hear you.
It's 500,000 within 4 years. So you're sort of right. So it's 125,000 a year.
Or it's 500,000 and then you can't apply again for 4 years.
Ah,
okay, yeah.
huh.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Well, you're just asking about MVP.
I'm just asking for a support letter for MVP, that's it.
And you spoke of a prioritization plan. Everyone has agreed that that Blake Street sidewalks are the priority to a.
It's Pierce Street was the #1 priority
And where was that again?
in the prioritization plan. Pierce Street sidewalks, and then Blake Street was #10, I think. And then the street lights on Pierce Street were #12, I believe.
And who did the somebody
You
refresh
folks
my
did.
memory.
The master,
You guys voted on it a couple of years ago, I believe, 2.5 years ago.
as part of the master plan though, right?
No,
No.
it was part of the Complete Streets process.
Okay.
So there is, if you go to the planning department webpage, there is a tab for Complete Streets, and you can see the policy that you folks adopted, I believe, 5 years ago. and the prioritization plan that was adopted, I think, 2.5 years ago.
Okay, so you said Pier Street was number 1
It was,
and Blake Street was number 10?
yes.
Well, I know Maple was number 7. Remember that.
Well, anyway, we're only discussing MVP, so, right?
Correct.
So I do have a
That's the
question
ask
about the
tonight.
MVP.
I'm
So-
sorry, Lisa, are you all set? Your hand is still up, so I want to make
Oh,
sure
yeah, she had
you're all
one.
set for now.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So sometimes you can gauge how good your application is during that question and answer period. Did you get any, like, positive response, or?
I did. So this is not the one-stop program, so it works different. They don't have an expression of interest, but I did reach out to the regional coordinator, and I explained the project, and I provided some concept renderings and asked for feedback. And she provided me with an email with her comments, some things that she thought that I really should point out in the application to make the application stronger. So it was positive feedback.
Excuse me, any other questions, comments?
One more question.
Sure, of course.
And if you don't get buy-in from the private property owners,
Then I would ask for the lesser amount, 750,000. If she is interested in partnering with us, then it would be the larger amount, the 1 million, because I'm assuming that the improvements to her property, the landscaping improvements, would be approximately 250,000, but I just took that number out of the sky based on what the costs are for the municipal portion.
but you'll still, like, repay, you'll repave their area?
No, it wouldn't pay for the repaving. So what it would pay for is the landscaping and like the reconfiguration of the parking lot. But the MVP doesn't pay for paving unless you're doing, like, for example, our municipal parking lot, super elevating to get the stormwater into the bioswale. So that would make it a fundable expense. But in her area, she's not interested in doing bioswales, so there's no need to super elevate the pavement. So if that's something she wanted to do, she'd have to pay for it.
I would hope that she'd consider paving or at least doing a topping of the pavement. You know, we will have, after this project, the rest of that area will be beautiful and new. It would be nice for it to be consistent, but that's private property. It's not our decision to make. Seeing no other questions, I don't think. Are we ready for a motion on applying for the MVP action grant?
I have that motion.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to approve the support letter for the MVP action grant as presented by the planning director and included in the meeting packet.
Second.
Okay, motions made by Julianne, seconded by Laura. Any other comments or questions?
I guess my concern is just the overall cost, and I think the presentation was great. The layout looks good, but it's the cost of it, especially with other things that are going on. And I guess because of the grant being so tied into it, I don't want to be disingenuous in voting for a grant where I think the project may not be financially in the town's best interest. So I'm just wondering, I was just wondering, if it's not a unanimous vote, does that reflect in the letter, or does that change anything? It just, the board provided its support.
I don't think unanimous or otherwise would show up in the letter. It would just be that there's a vote of support, and however the letter is formatted, either be myself or Stephanie to go ahead and sign that. At this point, we're asking for a grant. That's all that this commits us to. So I, would hope that we would all be interested in applying for a grant.
Right, and even if,
We will get into the town meeting discussion, and I hope we get more details as we get closer to town meeting in terms of what the actual ask is, which sounds like it should be, notably less than the 1.85.
And if I could just put it to you this way, so let's assume the project is 2.1 million. So I understand that you may not think it's a good idea. But possibly town meeting does think it's a good idea. So it's 2.1 million, whether the town of Northborough pays for it or whether a grant pays for a bulk of it. So it could be $1 million that the town pays for, it could be 2.1 million. So if you think of it that way, if you say no to applying for grants, then that puts the entire burden on Northborough taxpayers instead of giving them the reduced burden of, hey, we pursued all of these other avenues to pay for this project, so your share is only 50%.
Well, regardless, let's just say it doesn't pass at town meeting, at least would have some money to do, like you were saying, the pocket park right?
right, I guess that would be the flip side of it, because you did say before, Lori, that even if it wasn't to pass town meeting, the funding's not contingent on that, so we would still
Right.
have monies and could back up probably some of that with existing funds.
But it can only be used for things like the trees, bioswales.
Right.
It has to be climate kind of stuff.
Pergola.
Pergola, they're not gonna,
It provides shade, so it reduces
And
the
grapes.
heat island effect.
Are we opening a
Already have my
winery, given
arguments all good to
the
go.
alcohol? item?
Yes.
Okay, Lisa, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Now that I've heard that we could apply it for the fire station, I really would like to see that. I'd like to see some of that cost come down there. That's huge. And I can't feel comfortable asking for this when I know that that's available and it's already an expense we have promised.
I think that's a pretty bad idea at this stage, because we have money that under current law, we can get from the federal government for that. If we apply for the grant from the MVP, you can't double dip. We would absolutely not be able to do that. I think if it turns out that federal law changes and we can't get that grant, then maybe next year we can go ahead and try to get that for the geothermal, because the fire station project will still be underway at that point. But making a decision now is just throwing money away.
is the fire
Not
station
if it doesn't
prepared to do
pass.
something else than geothermal if the grant?
The design has geothermal. So you
So there's
can't.
no backup if we don't get the grant?
You can't design it. We would have to stop the project, redesign, and rebid. Or potentially make a change order for a complete new HVAC system. The bids are out, but, we'll know at least what the bids look like in another week and a half. And go from there.
Also, this grant is due in 3 weeks. So if you already have funding through another source, then it doesn't make sense. This is an extensive grant application. It's going to take me weeks to put this together. So if you have it already funded, then there's no point in applying for this grant, because you won't be able to use the money if it's funded through the federal government.
And you-
Whereas here, there is no alternative funding at this point, so
I see.
it would make more sense to apply for this project.
And you may have mentioned it before, Lori, and I think I missed it. I have the deadlines, but when would you hear back on the grants?
July, I believe.
For both of them, roughly?
No, that's for the
MVP?
MVP grant.
Okay,
I'm not sure about the complete streets.
okay.
I would imagine at least a month later, because it's due a month later.
Right, yeah, 5/1. Okay.
Julianne?
So what happens if you don't get 750,000 or $1 million, you just get 250, and it's voted down at town meeting? What
And
would
the
you?
project is significantly curtailed. It'd probably just be the pocket park, that's it. The Complete Streets pays for sidewalks. So if I get the Complete Streets grant, then that's what we would pay for, is sidewalks.
I appreciate all the work to help improve the downtown area. I think for the concerns about grants, the concerns about tariffs and all of these impacts, I like that there's options. So if we get this grant, there's some things that we can do. I like that they're not completely tied together. I hope we can maximize all the grants and nothing gets canceled to really, to be able to do something nice down there. So thank you for all those efforts. And I think similar to what Mike said, I feel like we're facing so much financial uncertainty. So I'm just saying, like, we don't know what's going to happen at town meeting or with any of these other expenses, but I do like that we'll be able to do something with this grant money. So thank you. That's my only comment.
If I remember correctly, the original version of this had a second article to bury the electrical lines. And that was, what, about $1 million?
Oh, I did not submit an article.
Right, okay.
We had talked about it, particularly with the focus group, that maybe it would be wise. And at the last focus group meeting, I was going to the Appropriations Committee and the Financial Planning Committee, like, right afterwards. So they suggested that I feel them out. And neither the Financial Planning nor the Appropriations thought that it would be wise to ask to bury the utilities. They thought it'd be too expensive and not important enough to make that request.
And I think that's important for all of us and the public to understand. The scope has already been reduced by $1 million before it got to us. Because ideally, yeah, you'd want to take out the utility poles out of Blake Street and bury the lines. But at $1 million for 3 or 4 poles, I think removing it was the right decision.
$1 million for that?
It's very, very expensive to do that.
Wow.
Very, very expensive. And that doesn't account for then the private landowners reconnecting to the new utility lines, which would cost each of them a little chunk of money too.
Yeah, it's like, what, it's $6,000 or something like that, right?
It would be more than that. They would have
Didn't they
to,
give us a number?
Yeah, they said that it really depended upon where their meters were, how costly it would be.
so again, to put that in context, this project has already been scope reduced. All right, so again, all we're being asked for tonight is to submit for a grant, try to get some money from the state. Is there a motion?
Didn't I like?
Well, we had the motion and.
Oh, we had a
And then I
motion.
derailed us.
That's
but-
right, and we usually we don't talk so much. My apologies, motion has been made and seconded. Julianne, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 Lisa?
No,
I vote aye. The vote is 4 in favor, 1 opposed. We've got a grant application. Please let us know if there's anything that we can do. Which reminds me, was there something else that you needed me to sign tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and you
Right
have
here.
it? Okay, this is
So
unrelated to this.
every member
Yeah.
has to sign the quitclaim deed for 0 Northgate, and then we have, so you can
Something
start.
else.
And here's the 2 grant.
Okay, 0 Northgate, we haven't actually done yet.
Oh,
So
okay,
don't
that's on the
don't-
agenda?
Yeah,
That's
that's
on
on the
the-
agenda.
okay.
I remember there was something else that you wanted me to do.
I'll wait a
Okay.
second on that one.
That was just something else we had already approved, so I didn't want to forget. Okay.
Actually, while Lori is here, we should ask her about the the historic restriction.
Yep, let's do the agenda item first.
Okay.
Next up is execution of quitclaim deed for 0 Northgate Road.
Before we do that, I
Okay.
just wanted to give you the heads up that there's another grant application. I was approached by the town of Southborough about participating in a regional effort to study the Route 9 corridor. And so that would be a one-stop grant. And it would be a planning grant, and the cost would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $175,000. And so I just wanted to feel you folks out. One of the things that we could look at through this planning grant is, of course, land uses, We've already discussed the WRTA study. So looking at alternative modes of transportation, the B-Walt, because of course Westboro is very involved with the construction of the B-Walt. We would also look at our infrastructure problems, of course, the failing septic systems along Route 9, the zoning. We just rezoned the area last year, so we're less interested in the zoning, except maybe there are some additional uses that we should allow that we don't currently allow. The towns of Southborough and Westboro were really interested in the zoning analysis. But I think that this would really set the groundwork for us to do, first of all, have better relationships with our neighbors that are along Route 9, to do projects together, and also to get funding for other improvements along Route 9, certainly the gateway of our community.
Yeah,
So-
and to make it look a lot more attractive than it's looking. So it is a good opportunity, absolutely.
And regionalizing approaches to planning is a really good thing, and I know from experience that that's something the state looks at
Yep.
very favorably in reviewing grant applications. They like to see that, and it's tremendously beneficial.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
So I will be asking, I'm not ready right now to ask you for a support letter, but that will be coming. That grant application isn't due until June, so it's kind of on the back burner for me right now. But that will be coming down the pike, and if you folks are supportive, then certainly I will tell our neighbors that we are interested in going full bore.
Okay, everyone supportive, at least with pursuing, and then we will be asked for formal vote at some point later?
Yes.
Okay, are we ready for 0 Northgate?
Yes, so 0 Northgate, right before this meeting, I met with the Conservation Commission. The executed deed is en route. I expect it any day now. So that's a little parcel of land that's on Northgate. It's surrounded by land, 35 acres of land, 11 acres of which is currently owned by the Conservation Commission. So spoke to you about this a couple of months ago. You folks at that time had expressed your support. And so now is the time to execute the acceptance document if you are still on board with that.
Okay, any questions for Lori on this item? Okay, we discussed this a couple of meetings ago.
Yeah.
Still fresh in
Just
our
very
mind.
appreciative.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, this is very good. Lisa, is there a motion?
Riz, if I can turn the page. I move the board to accept the quitclaim deed for 0 Northgate Road as presented by the planning director and included in the meeting packet.
Second.
Motion made by Lisa, seconded by Julianne. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Lisa?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor.
Thank you.
Excellent. While we have you, Steph brought up quickly a White Cliffs question for you. It's okay if you don't know the answer, but we'll ask it now because it relates to the warrant that we're going to set. I seem to remember that because we bought White Cliffs with community preservation funds and from the historic category of funds, we have to set a historic deed restriction on the
Yes.
property, and we have not done that yet, correct?
Correct.
Do we need to do that before we, assuming that someone falls out of the sky and says, yes, we want to buy it, or something like that, we need to do that before that takes place? Because if we sell it, it's no longer ours, we can't set a deed restriction.
Right. So the way we discussed this the last time when we issued the RFP is we were going to wait to see what the proposed use was, and we were going to negotiate the limitations and what things were going to be preserved as part of that process. So the preservation restriction needs to be executed before you sign on the dotted line to transfer the land. But it doesn't need to be done before the RFP is issued.
Okay.
Is that only for sale or for lease as well?
We can talk to town council.
Okay, yeah.
Originally, a few years ago, we were talking about sale.
Yeah.
So that was the conversation that we had at that
Okay.
time.
Do the specifics of the restriction need to be in place for town meeting to approve it? Or is it more general?
I believe you could do like a warrant article that says that the select board would work on the particulars of the preservation restriction, but I don't have the specific language.
Okay,
That
yeah.
should be
So
the town council.
The reason I'm thinking about it is we have an article in our warrant that would, if approved by town meeting, grant this board the authority to sell or lease White Cliffs. And my hope is, you know, we would present that with some additional information by the time we get to April. We may want to have that on the same warrant.
That would be prudent, I think.
Okay, all right, good. So we will, Steph?
I'm asking you. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's all right.
fault.
We just got the answer that we needed that. I think we do need to add it to the warrant.
Okay, I would, just to be
Yeah.
sure, and we can pass it over if we
Right,
don't need it.
right, yeah, okay.
I'm sure town council can give you a
Yeah, we
great
would have-
language that would cover whether it's a lease or a sale.
And we are gonna have town council
Yeah.
review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any particular reason? Because we've owned it since 16, right?
Why it hasn't been done yet?
Yeah.
I can tell you why. Because the concern was, like particularly, there's those 1960s additions. So the concern was, well, depending upon what the use is, we don't really know what's going to be kept and what's not. Like, at the time, we were debating whether there would be an elevator installed in the historic mansion in order to facilitate use of the second floor, which has a lovely bar on it. So it was decided to just kick the can because you didn't want the preservation restriction to be so limiting that we wouldn't be able to find somebody who'd be able to use the building. You know, also there may be the need to portion off certain areas, like to change the room configuration depending upon the use. Like the second floor used to have, I think, 4 or 5 bedrooms, and now it's just this big open space. So it was so that we wouldn't shoot ourselves in the foot by requiring preservation of certain elements that would enable, wouldn't enable the building to be used.
Okay. And putting it on the warrant wouldn't do that now, right? The-
Well, my recommendation would be to put it in the hands of the select board to negotiate the terms.
Okay. So it's not an all or nothing type thing?
Yeah, because I don't think you want town meeting to be negotiating the terms of, you know, the segmentation of the third floor, for
Right.
example.
I think in a perfect world, we would have that fully formed before it went to town meeting. We're not going to have that fully formed for this town meeting, but if we're asking for the authority to make a deal with White Cliffs sometime between this April and next April, we will not be able to do that, to actually execute that until we have the restriction placed on. Town meeting needs to give us the authority to place that on there. So
Yeah.
adding that, I think, is,
Yeah, and I'll talk to town council
Yeah.
about
yeah.
how to word it.
Okay. All right. So that was a question, and now I have another question for you. We were looking at,
The 2 signature pages, so one is the contract.
it says contractor, legal name, Town of Northborough. This is, I think, for the MVP, but I don't see anything on there about it
Oh,
being the MVP.
Yeah, so that is just.
Just want to make sure we're signing the right thing.
Yeah, because Stephanie is the official signer. In the old days, she would just attest that she herself was the official signer, and now they don't allow that. So now you would sign here.
Even though
and
it says that
Stephanie
we are the
signs here.
contractor,
Yes.
that's still right? Okay.
That is correct.
All right.
So Stephanie would sign here and you sign there.
Okay.
And that was for the MVP grant?
That is for the
One
economic
step.
development earmark for 30,000.
Oh, the 30,000.
Oh, okay, that's that one.
Okay, that's
Okay.
why it looks different.
Okay.
So we got an earmark from the state.
And Then this one is on the MVP.
Okay.
And then I have one more update.
So it's
You already voted on it previously, so that's why I didn't ask to put it on the agenda, but the signature, the acceptance for the conservation restriction for Bartlett Street subdivision that was discussed previously, 201 Bartlett Street, that 150,000 square foot distribution center. That is ready to go. You voted on it previously, so Mitch is the only one who has to sign that document. I'll have that to you tomorrow.
Okay, that's great.
Thanks for all these updates. That was a lot.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
You're tired,
Oh,
huh?
let her go.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, next up, we have vote to accept a 10-year useful life designation for the fire engine approved by Article 17 of the 2023 annual town meeting.
Hello.
Welcome up.
Hey, well, thanks for having me.
Anytime.
This is a relatively simple request. When we start putting together documents to issue a bond, and as you know, we're working toward issuing a bond, including the fire station construction. As we work through the requirements from bond council, generally after an article is approved at town meeting, when it's a borrowing authorization, we seek what's called a green light letter from bond council. They send us a whole package of information, or we send them back a whole package of information after they send us a letter of requests. While we were working on this, it was discovered that this vote hadn't happened yet, so that's why I'm before you tonight to ask for it. The article was approved at last year's town meeting. It was the, or 2023's town meeting, I should say. It was the $900,000 fire engine, and this will give us the permission to borrow over a 10-year term rather than a 5-year term.
And prior to tonight, I asked, what's the actual expected useful life? It's 25 years, so.
Yeah, it's typically longer, but
Yeah.
the big pieces of equipment we've typically financed over 10 years. So that's, we're going with our past practice on the term of this.
Any questions?
Nope.
No.
Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to accept the 10-year useful life designation for the fire engine approved by Article 17 of the 2023 annual town meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Laura, seconded by Mike. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, Laura?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Lisa?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. I'll vote aye. Vote is 4-0 unanimous in favor with one abstention. Thank you very much.
Oh, and I do have something exciting to ask for. It's a signature on this useful life form, and it's actually Laura that will
Oh,
sign it.
yay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Next up, we have a vote to authorize the town to be bound by the feasibility study agreement, the FSA, for the Margaret E. Peasley Elementary School.
Can I ask you another question?
Absolutely.
I'm like, I never thought about the difference between state and federal grants, but
Yeah.
are the FSAs federal? And are they tied to the Department of Education?
Feasibility is, the F is feasibility. It's a state, yeah, MSBA is
Okay,
state money.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my only question.
Yeah, and I think it's 100% funded state. It is when you pay sales tax.
Yep.
1 penny, or, one of the 6.25% goes to the MSBA.
Got it.
Their budget is enormous.
Yeah.
At the meeting we attended about the Peasley project.
Yep.
We were aghast to see that Lexington High School moved from feasibility to schematic design, which is the next phase.
Yep.
That we would be at. Their budget, $668 million.
That's it.
Wait,
For the
what?
Lexington
Yeah.
High School. Not for us, don't worry.
No.
The Lexington's gonna reconstruct their high school.
They have some money.
668 million is gonna be the expected cost of construction and design services for their high school. Just to show you the inflation that is taking place at the school level. Peasley will not be that expensive.
Do we have an idea?
I think you're carrying a $90 million cost.
Yeah, I think that's been updated to 100 million.
Oh, hooray.
But our exposure is likely going to be about 50% of that.
Yeah,
For the building? For the school?
yeah. Yeah,
668 million?
for not ours, Lexington's, but yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't start that rumor.
I'm so sorry. I'm not
But
trying to
it's-
start a
it-
rumor.
it-
I'm genuinely shocked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the
Make sure the
takeaway.
minutes are very specific.
Right.
Right, but just, things keep getting more expensive, and waiting costs money and stuff like that, and that's just, yeah. I remember when, I think it was Newton North crossed the $100 million threshold, probably close to 20 years ago, and that was an extreme project at
Yeah.
that point, and boy. Anyway, so what we're asked to is so town meeting authorized the money. Last town meeting, I think it was $900,000 for feasibility for the Peasley project. The MSBA at their meeting a couple of weeks ago officially, gave us permission to go ahead into the feasibility phase. So this is us saying, yes, we agree
Yeah,
to.
it's not 100% we will, but we're
Yeah,
getting there.
We're bound
Yeah.
to the contract. And without this, we would not be eligible for the state funding that would come to pay
Okay.
for about half of the $900,000 that was appropriated at town meeting last year.
Got it.
Okay, did I do that well, as far as you know?
Yeah, I would just point out that it was a borrowing authorization, so we
Yeah.
haven't borrowed any of the money yet.
Okay.
No expenditures have happened yet as a result of us moving through the process of getting invited in to collaborate with the MSBA. So no financial transactions have happened yet, except for recording that we authorized the debt. But that will likely, if an expenditure happens next year, we'll be borrowing for it next year.
Yeah,
Thank you.
But net of the MSBA money.
Thank you.
excellent.
I'm still in shock by these numbers.
I know, yeah.
More still.
You're right.
Yes.
I have a question about this.
Sure.
Okay, so we're voting to authorize the town of Northborough to be bound by the feasibility study agreement. Where's we're not going to see it before we vote on this?
It's a state dictated agreement.
I can
Yeah.
print it out, but
Yeah.
yeah. It pretty much is the same jargon for every single town, but I can print it out if you want.
And every town that's built a school through MSBA has had to do this.
Yep.
Yes,
This
yeah,
is the same that Lincoln went through?
It's same that Lincoln went through, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Lincoln
so-
Elementary, not any other town schools?
Right, yes. Yeah, it's, I don't think they've changed the form substantially in the 20 years or whatever.
Okay, so we're only bound to the feasibility study.
Correct.
We're not bound, we don't have to vote on the school.
Correct.
Because if that, okay.
Yeah, so there are 2 additional steps going from feasibility to schematic design. I'm not 100% sure that would come back to us, but it may. But certainly construction would absolutely come back to us in a number of ways. Contractually, town meeting, everything like that.
You're not tearing, the plan is not to tear down the building, right?
Has not been determined.
Oh,
So we haven't started the feasibility yet.
okay.
So we don't know.
Okay.
Is there a motion? Unless there, I'm sorry, Lisa, you have a question.
Yes.
Lisa?
I want to get a little bit more like what Julianne said. Bound, I don't understand it. It sounds pretty specific that we're bound. We have to accept the agreement?
We have to accept the agreement if we want $400,000 from the state. It's signing a contract, and this is the way that they tell us we have to do it.
And what's in the agreement, other than the fact that if you're not going to sign it, you're not going to get that money?
That's pretty much it.
Right.
Yeah, it sets out the process for how you have to hire an owner's project manager, how you have to hire the architect, committee rules and regulations about the building committee that we already have in place.
Yeah, it's a very structured process that this is, like I said, it's cookie cutter.
Yeah,
And every town that builds a school through MSBA,
Yep.
this is what they do. Their select board or council or whoever has to agree to this.
Yeah.
Yep, we watched them online too.
Yeah.
All the other towns getting approved
yeah,
for.
so there were, 5 total towns that they
Right.
invited into feasibility, plus the Lexington that they invited into schematic design. And MSBA is, they provide a lot of money, but they have a lot of rules. And if you want the money, you have to follow the rules. These are the rules for feasibility study. So this is what,
So it's just basically for the rules for study, it's not that once we do the feasibility study, the agreement doesn't say we have to do
that is
exactly
correct.
what
That
the
is correct, yeah.
feasibility study
We
says.
can, in theory, we could do the feasibility study and say, nope, we don't want to do that, or we don't want to do anything, and then it is up, in theory, to the select board and to town meeting to take next steps. There are carrot and stick items to all of those things, but this is all that this commits us to doing. Okay. That answers your question?
Yeah, because it was a pretty specific sentence, but not having any understanding of it. Boy, look at every time I talk, I get this long wave of my face.
Yeah, there wasn't anything in the meeting packet specific to it, so I mean, maybe just like a blurb of explanation maybe would have been helpful, but, oh well.
Yeah, I know the building committee got something from MSBA on what that looked like. So I guess it just wasn't put in the packet by the office.
Yeah, I thought it would
Yeah.
have been here. Okay.
Yeah, I imagine you could see that it is sent out, but it is fill in the blank, and the blank is the name of the town. And that's about the flexibility.
Right.
we
No,
have
I
in the
know.
agreement.
I'm not saying that we
Yeah.
necessarily needed it, but maybe
Yeah.
your explanation in a
Background.
paragraph would have been
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. Okay,
All right, well, if you could send me a copy or a link, I'd just
Yep.
like to read it.
okay. Is
Mr.
there a
Chair, would you
motion?
like a motion?
Yes, please.
I move the board vote to authorize the town of Northborough to be bound by the feasibility study agreement for the Marguerite E. Peasley Elementary School.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mike, seconded by Laura. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Mike?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous. In favor. To feasibility we go. Next up, we have vote to authorize, to review and close the town meeting warrant. Steph, do you want to walk us through the warrant, and we
Yeah.
can have some discussions? If you want to point out anything that's new or different than last time, would be good.
Right. So, first off, I want to give a huge shout out to Angie in my office. The poor thing, we're like, put this in, take that out. So, she has been amazing. And I like the way it's set up this year into different categories, so budget articles, capital improvement. I guess we'll start with, let's just see, stabilization. The only newer things, the establishment of the special purpose stabilization fund for the safer grants, that's Article 16.
Sorry, can you say that again? Where are we looking?
I was just looking at the index
I'm-
What
article.
changed? I'm confused.
So I'm sorry, might be new from the last time we reviewed this
Oh,
last
okay,
meeting.
okay,
Is what I was thinking.
No, I know we updated
I know we added what's now our Article 5, the alcoholic beverages.
Oh, okay, so that's Article 5, so, Article 5, so, let's
Can you
see.
remind me what the change is?
So-
Or is that what we're doing now?
Yep,
so-
yeah,
We have a bylaw in place that looks a little old, that prohibits serving alcohol on municipal property and on
Yes.
outdoor public property and things like that. That might limit, for example, if somebody wanted to, just for example, lease for West Main or lease White Cliffs, but wanted it to be a restaurant that served alcohol, that might be prohibited at that point. If a lot of street fairs have enclosed beer gardens, if we ever had a beer garden at the Applefest Street
Right.
Fair, for example, that might be prohibited by the bylaw, so I brought that up and mentioned it.
well,
to-
most towns are switching that
Yeah.
because, it's
Yeah.
just these days.
So there would be still, procedural processes in place to grant licenses and things like that.
Right,
So this
that
isn't
wouldn't
that it
change.
becomes an open thing, it just becomes not prohibited.
It's not like a town-wide open container go,
No, Joe Schmo walking down the
Correct.
street with
Right,
his,
right.
no.
Yeah.
No.
And there are others, so for example, some libraries for art openings will have wine and cheese.
Yeah.
If the library or the senior center ever wanted to have a little higher end party and wanted to have champagne.
Or the food trucks with the,
Yeah.
beverages and, yeah.
So it at least opens the door for those things to occur.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm trying to see anything else that's different from last time. Love you.
Was there something that changed with the SAFER grant that you mentioned, though?
No, I was just reading it.
Okay.
Let's see.
Did you talk about Article 4 before?
Did we talk about ARPA?
Article 4.
Article-
yeah, I think
Article 4.
I think Article 4 is also new.
Significant building?
Historic building, okay. Hold on. Article 4, so that is, the proposed amendment clarifies and improves the criteria for defining historically or architecturally significant buildings in Northborough by incorporating recommendations from the Mass Historical Commission for a more structured and transparent review process. It eliminates redundant language, as buildings on the National Register have already that meet the criteria, and clarifies that inclusion in the MACRIS inventory does not automatically confer historical significance. Additionally, it distinguishes buildings within a town historic district, which are regulated separately under the Historic District Act. By refining the bylaws language, this amendment aligns it with the state preservation guidelines, ensuring more accurate and justifiable determinations of a building's significance.
So I will guess that this came out of the Historic District Commission's review of the now demolished fire station, and they, I think, hit a roadblock that they figured out how to overcome.
Yes, there was a lot
And this
of
makes that a little bit easier.
back and forth. Yep, so, that was suggested as a change, just so it's,
Can I ask a question about that? I'm glad you brought that one up, because I didn't really look at it closely. So where it says significant building, any building in the town of Northborough which is historical by reason of its age in whole or in part 100 or more years, I'm pretty sure in some towns they do less, like 50 years would be appropriate when you're talking about some of these mid-century modern structures that are historically significant.
and I'm sure that conversation will come up, but,
Yeah, so we currently have 100 years is the bylaw now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I think that we should expand that.
but if it was just 50, wouldn't that be like the 1970s?
Yep.
Things were old. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, historic should be things that we didn't experience.
You're a historic
Yeah, no, I think it's a reasonable question. Maybe we could ask the Historic District Commission to provide a recommendation and
Okay.
as to
Actually,
whether.
I'm the liaison.
Oh,
so
okay,
I will-
perfect. So you can
I
do
will
that?
do that.
Yeah,
there we go.
okay.
And it does say any building, so that would even be like a residence?
Yes.
So so like if it was lowered, a residence from the 1970s,
1970s?
I think the MACRIS is a 100-year minimum to be in the MACRIS. The MACRIS is the Massachusetts Historic Home Database that the Historical Society has worked off of. So I think that year might come
Maybe
from
that's,
there.
maybe that's why the 100
I
comes
think
from
that's where
there.
the 100 years
Oh,
comes
okay.
from.
Yeah, so I misspoke. It wasn't the fire station that they had to debate, but the house that was next to the old fire station was over 100 years old, so it needed to go through a process. And my assumption is that this article comes from their
experience.
committee and their experience to simplify that process. Make it more straightforward.
I don't know, but I know the MACRIS stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But you're probably right where the 100 comes from. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, it's not about a change, but when we get to it, I was just curious if we had preliminary numbers for Article 8 to see how much would be raised if
Yeah.
everything was approved and all that fun
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, we will definitely
Okay.
get to that. I had a general thought as Articles 4, 5, and 6 are bylaw amendments. I'm wondering whether we could shift those down somewhere,
Let's see.
somewhere later. I see the logic in doing general government all in one, but we usually do bylaws towards the end, like, maybe put those before the zoning bylaws.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
No,
so,
no concerns with the items.
yeah, I'm
But
just
I think it might, people come in expecting to vote on money and then voting on rules. And I don't know, I feel like we'd throw the,
Which article were you asking for, Mike?
So,
The cost of 4, 5, and 6?
so, no, cost of town budget, 8 is what he was asking about.
Oh, okay.
Which we will definitely get to.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that, like moving the sort of,
move to zoning articles or
Yeah, just before the zoning articles,
to the,
the 4, 5, and 6, the 3 general bylaw changes. I think it's, yeah, and 6 is both bylaw and
town
charter.
town code,
I
okay.
would put it,
We have a land use easement and zoning articles.
yeah, I would insert that between the economic development and the land use sections. So have a, general bylaw
Town
section.
code, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
general bylaw, town code, whatever we want to call it. So we do general bylaws and then zoning bylaws right afterwards.
Okay,
Yeah, town budget. I was surprised that our draft warrant doesn't have more information yet on the town budget. I know it's still going through appropriations and financial planning, but to see us close a warrant when they're just X's and with the dollar figures for the town budget and us not seeing tax impact on seeing where are we with the capital items relative to free cash and everything like that.
so we're working on whittling it with the schools. The schools actually cut
Yeah.
out a lot of capital. They have their new capital articles here. We're doing the same, DPW, we're still having, of course, the heavy hitters, DPW, fire, police. We're still going through the financial votes with the committees. So until it comes to a vote,
Yep.
it's hard to put everything in or take it out. Yeah, basically, snapshot is, again, it's the unions negotiations. We have the 5 unions, so we have to make sure that we budget enough for any changes for fiscal year 26, 27, 28. Also, health insurance came in at like 25%. 25%. So we reduced it. We're negotiating, but we almost fell off our rockers because in February, we were told budget for 10 to 12%. So of course we did that, and then it came in at 25, and it's not just high claims, it's just the climate of health insurance and all the hospital closures, doctors being paid more. There's umpteen strikes against health insurance. So what we did is group together and worked with our insurance broker, where we're pushing them to come in. Every town we did a survey is coming in at high teens. So we know we're not the only ones, but would like to be the high teens, and that's pretty pathetic that we're like, ooh, come on, 16. But yeah, we're hoping that we get it down significantly and without any plan changes. And moving on in the future, we're taking considerations for either, we have 1,500 members between the schools, Southborough, which is good because in numbers, you get a better rate. But we're even exploring the option of, joining other groups, whether it be, ASABID or wherever else.
All options are sort of on the table.
Yeah, and this is a global effort. Everybody is talking to each other, trying to figure out and, make changes. A lot of the broker said, oh, okay, well, why don't you guys try to self-fund your prescriptions? Well, prescriptions are through the roof. So if the HMOs don't want to deal with prescription costs, like a lot of the GLPs, the Ozempics, skyrocketing. It's outlandish. And so there is no way I would recommend going,
unpredictable.
uncharted waters and figuring that we're going to self-fund ourselves. So yeah, there's a lot of options and considerations, but right now, with the timetable we have and a budget to prepare, we're kind of stuck, and we're still in negotiation, of course, trying to get as low as we possibly can. So,
But there may be further changes to come.
there may
because of
be
this.
further changes, which is why also the budget is in flux. The school might have to reduce more, we might have to reduce more.
What about
It's-
any personnel changes, added positions? I know there are departments that have requested,
So,
but
the
where does
school-
that stand with you?
From the school side, they had, a few added positions, and they reduced that number, knowing what we're up against. Same here, we have 2 positions, one for the senior center that they wanted a front person, not just a senior tax write-off person that was there, infrequently, and they couldn't be at the desk and understand from day-to-day operations. So they wanted that permanent person. I don't know, we're bringing it up to appropriations. I already mentioned it, and they're taking that as part of their whole financial process of rolling through, what they see even at the joint meeting with you all on the 24th, because not only do we have to look at appropriations, we have to look at capital costs, we do have a budget, and our budget is balanced, but there's a lot of unknowns that we can't put it on paper right now and be-
So looking at it like this K through 8, for right now is an increase of 3.86, which is basically level services, or
It
maybe a
is.
little bit less.
Yeah.
Because of some things they wanted to add that they've pulled back.
Right.
Regional high school, 5.42. So we would be probably looking at the town to be within that target.
So we're asking all departments to be level service, which is, around 3%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we have to close the warrant tonight?
So closing the warrant sets that these are the articles that are on the warrant. It does not finalize the language of each article.
Right.
Executing the warrant that we would do in 2 meetings.
They're just placeholders
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
And even if it was approved, it went to town meeting with the language, you could always pass on a specific article if we were not entertaining it anymore.
And it means no one else can submit an article?
Correct. I mean, in theory, we have the option, we had to do it last year, we could reopen
I was gonna say, yeah, I think
a warrant.
we're watching that.
Yeah, we're reopening a warrant, add something, if it turns out that there was some important thing came in. But this really sets the line in the sand as, nothing else gets added.
Yeah, you
Is what
need
we're doing
something to
here.
work from, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I, from my perspective, I'm a little concerned that we don't have more information on the financials for this
Well,
yet.
we
And I know everybody's still working on it, but I'd rather, by the time we close the warrant, to have a little bit further. So,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
We have the numbers that we have, whether or not they're going to change is the question. So I guess for us to put out that message right now, it wouldn't be,
because this board needs to be involved in some of the decision-making.
right,
such
which
as-
a lot of the decisions haven't been made yet, and that's what we're waiting on.
Yeah.
is appropriations, financial planning, to see where I think a lot is going to come out at our next meeting on
Yep.
what direction we're heading, if we're going to continue to cut, if we're okay where we stand. Of course, we want to be under the levy limit and make sure,
So.
whatever situation, yeah.
So
Laura,
if we,
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Laura, go ahead. I didn't, you've had your hand.
No, I appreciate that you guys are going through this with a fine tooth comb, and if it's possible, I know it's not possible to keep cutting, but with the threats on federal grants, if it means a truck or it means being able to keep people, I would much rather save money on things than in being able to retain our staff.
Right, of course.
So
Of course.
if you can just relay, if the rest of the board agrees, of course, but anything that can be postponed a year would be really appreciated, just while we hopefully get to some predictability with what the federal government's going to do.
And that's what we're doing now.
Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
There are
Yeah.
positions that I am concerned are going to be impacted. I mean, there's been grants shut off like that, and people are losing their jobs so
I know.
quickly. And we've always been told that these federal grants will never go away, and they'll be there for the life of it. And it's such uncharted territory.
It is.
And I don't want to lose our people.
I
So,
know.
I'm sorry.
No.
Hate to be a Debbie Downer. I appreciate all the hard work that staff is putting in
Yeah.
and the goal of where we want to go. I want to be as conservative as possible.
Yes, and actually, we're both very conservative people, so.
Thank you.
So, yeah, it will be.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Yeah, no problem.
Mike?
Just wondering, so if things are still kind of in flux to a little bit, if we close the warrant, can things still come out? Like if there's, okay, we need to cut more, this needs to come out, like how does that work mechanically?
So there are two ways to do it. One is we could just take a vote that Article X, pick a number, Article X, will be passed over at town meeting, in which case that then says it would still be on the warrant, but our intent is to pass over that item. Another option is we could keep it on there and set the dollar amount to zero. And since at least the practice is at town meeting, you can't increase the dollar amount for an article, then essentially you can't fund that item. If we decided that, another option is to reopen the warrant and remove the article entirely.
Which are just a bunch of motions to do
Yes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's, we only have a couple more meetings before we need to
Right.
finalize
Yeah,
everything.
so we're in the
There's
phase
not-
now.
Not a lot of
Kind of run out
time.
of time. yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's,
I've got a question for you or Jason is, we have a number of capital articles, as we do every year. How many of those capital articles are fundable by the regular funding that we have in place, the free cash and standard policy versus anything that may require something extraordinary?
Yeah, so that's one of the details we're working through.
Okay.
We've prepared a capital plan. We've been updating, it's been updated for tomorrow night's financial planning committee meeting. We're short from the amount of free cash that's available by $1.3 million in the capital plan. So we haven't targeted which articles would be a borrowing authorization to fund that gap, or that would be a consideration in terms of recommendations made. I don't think that would change the number of articles. It would still appear as an article on the warrant. But that may guide town meetings' recommendations or the recommendations made by the financial boards, whether to approve those articles or not. So we're going through the process with financial planning to discuss a priority ranking for the different articles. So we can kind of target and they can weigh in on what they think would be the wisest. And, I'll work with the administrator on which ones we target as being debt authorizations. So basically of the, I think we applied 3.2 million toward the capital plan and it's 4.6, so we're short by 1.3 million. Going back to the financial summit back in August, when we were trying to put together what the forecast looked for the next 5 years or so, I think we made the determination that making very austere budget choices by having a 3% budget increases with the schools and the town budgets, health insurance being 4% increases, which seemed like a reasonable assumption back in August, which was blown out of the water by these health insurance renewal numbers that we got at the end of February. Basically, we would be out of the unused levy capacity that the town has. The town has $2.5 million of unused levy capacity, meaning that it can access that without needing to seek an override. That would be used up in 27 or 28 under those very austere predictions. And I remember at the time, people saying, it was an exercise, so to speak. So people saying, there's no way we can produce a budget that's 3%. So we're working through those details, like with the administrator, to figure out where we're at. Again, I can't stress enough how much of that health insurance number threw us for a loop here, because a 25% increase in health insurance would mean that we would need to seek an override in 26 rather than 27 or 28. And so, again, it's such a material difference and change. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be 25%, but the 16 or 17%, we're still working through that. And at the time when we prepared the budget instructions, we kind of thought the policy decisions were going to be surrounding what services to add, not which ones to cut. So again, we're still working through that process, which we will definitely be much closer to being done with by the presentation on the 24th. And I did a tangential answer to your question, Mr. Chair, but hopefully that answered your question about the capital plan.
Yes, yeah, I was very curious as to where we are.
But going back to the
with
summit,
that
I forgot my major
1.3.
point why I started on the financial summit, but
Yeah.
we had modeled debt going forward to be within our debt policy. And if we embarked on this fire station project, which is higher than it was when we first envisioned the fire station, Peasley School as well, coming in 5 years or so, those two as bookmarks for large major projects, what that would look like for our debt policy, which says that we won't, will endeavor to have 8 to 10% of the operating budget not to exceed 8 to 10% for the debt service. So we would be within those targets if we were to borrow a small amount for the capital plan. And that's what was determined at that time, that we would have that capacity in the debt policy.
Did you have your hand up?
No, I'm
No,
good, thank you.
okay.
Question, Jason. Does that shortfall of 1.3 million in the capital plan, does that include Article 32?
Sorry, which one is Article 32?
The downtown streetscape improvement project, Lake Street?
Well, that's one of the capital projects. We have it in as 1.85 million
Right.
in the plan, so we would need to seek financing of $1.85 million to fund that article as it's contemplated right now. So that could be, and that may be the one that's targeted to be recommended as a debt authorization. And the reasons for that is that the total cost is unknown. So we wouldn't borrow for costs that are unknown until we know them for sure, and it wouldn't affect the plan.
Right.
Obviously, that's not enough alone, because we'd need to seek another,
Right.
500,000 after
But when you
that.
said there was like the difference, just to round it, between like 4 million and 3 million, and their shortfall is about 1 million, did
Yeah,
that
one-
total of
1.3,
4 million
yeah.
include that?
Yes.
It does,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And going forward, there's also, in the capital plan, we map out how issuing debt for the shortfalls going forward into the future. So we will do a projection for the capital, cost of the capital plan going forward for the out years of that as well. So part of that exercise is looking at the projects on a long-term basis, and there's a phase 2 and phase 3 of that project as well. So it's not just $2.5 million. It's contemplated to be something like 8.8 million over the next 10 years.
Oh,
So if you go to
Could you repeat that?
the downtown revitalization project, that is targeted to be somewhere about $8.8 million over the next 10 years.
The
There-
Blake
there's a
Street
phase
and
two-
Pierce Street?
Not Blake and Pierce Street. Blake and Pierce Street are phase 1 of that project.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, we always
There's
anticipated
more
that-
stages to it, yeah.
Yeah, that there are other things, and this is the first priority for downtown revitalization.
What would those other things be?
I think they were,
I'm not sure they're developed yet, the
right,
plans.
yeah, I think they were discussed in general at some of the big charrettes that were taking place where they showed, the multiple areas around town.
You mean the Tale of Three Cities?
When the consultants came with their plan, is that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's generally speaking where the concept of, if we were to do downtown revitalization, this is all the stuff. I thought it was going to be more than 10 years to do it. I don't-
It may end up being
Yeah.
that way. But.
Yeah, I think I always looked at it as a 20-year project that every few years we do another piece.
But we don't know what the pieces are after Blake Street.
Right, we don't know.
Lori would be the one who would know best, but we haven't applied for any other grants, we haven't funded any designs. I do not expect that something is going to be coming next year for another multi-million-dollar project.
Let's worry about this year.
Yeah, this is,
Right?
yeah, this is this one.
So it's kind of structured as there being a design and then the construction phase.
Yeah.
So there's a smaller amount for design, and then the year after that, it's contemplated with a construction phase.
Right, and we're not, there's no design on the warrant, there's no design that's
Right.
been requested or anything like that. Lisa, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, so I'm a little confused. I thought, we're talking about downtown revitalization, but what about the town offices? What about right now, the 63 Main, the things that are needed there for you to actually just go into work every day, like the rug and some of the bathroom situations and that? Where's that money put aside,
There's the HVAC, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
HVAC,
right?
yeah, we be
there's-
poor, we be.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Before you start going into that, how many workers are in that building that shouldn't be in that condition?
Yeah, we're hopeful to replace the carpet and the HVAC.
Are you gonna use the carpet from the old money that?
Yeah,
got you-
whatever, we'll have to pick straws on what floor gets recarpeted. No,
Because even the inside should be painted and such like that,
I
but
know. We should have a volunteer day,
Carpets.
come paint a room. That would be great.
yeah, But
Different.
the carpet's bubbling up. I went in the other day to get my packet and was shocked. Zoom, everybody. So there's nothing else then in this warrant that gives you any money for any type of building maintenance?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a $500,000, or I think it's ultimately going to be $470,000 for supplemental money for the HVAC
Yeah.
repairs here.
Yep.
Okay, but nothing else for any other buildings? Like we talked about cleaning them and doing that sort of thing. There's nothing in the budget for that?
Yeah, it's in their operating budget, and there's a specific, in the operating for the senior center, there's a line item for cleaning. Yeah,
But what about your building? What about the inside of the police station? Nothing?
They get cleaned through the operating budget.
yeah. Every building gets cleaned. I just don't think you can clean these carpets anymore. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, no, these carpets are ready. They're ready.
They're ripe,
This
yeah.
is another one of those, town meeting approved an article some number of years ago, and then nothing was ever done.
Yeah.
Mystery
Well,
that none of us here were part of.
They thought
and
they
we
were
don't know.
moving out, so
Yeah.
they didn't want to put the money, and they wanted to.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
article was from 2012, and
Yeah.
I don't know, forgive me if I'm being duplicative, but
No.
the thought was that because 4 West Main Street was coming back to the town, that the town would simply move our desks over to 4 West Main Street and set up shop and open up and turn the lights on, and we'd be over there. When the conditions of the building were discovered, that plan became unrealistic. So the delay in spending the money, it would have been irresponsible to have spent it before we knew what the condition of that building was. So doing a large scale, and I talked about the debt policy and the bookends of the fire station and then the Peasley School. It's unrealistic that another large project
Yeah.
be done in between them. So that's when the former administrator prior to staff made the decision to start moving forward with spending some of that money on upgrading this building, since it's, the writing's on the wall, basically, that we're going to be here for a little while.
Articles in general, while we're talking about the warrant, at our last meeting, we had talked about the feasibility of maybe combining articles in some way to simplify the process, whether it be simplifying the warrant or just making the meeting go a little bit faster and smoother. So we reached out to appropriations and financial planning primarily to get their thoughts, and I think they were supportive in general.
Yes,
And their requested way to do it is to keep the articles separate as is, rather than physically combining articles, but to decide ahead of time, before the warrant is printed and made available, how the motions will go, and to disclose up front, hey, we're going to take articles, and I'll make
13 through 20 or
yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
yeah.
We'll take them together as one motion.
Yep.
And that will be, once the decision is made for articles that are going to be borrowing articles, those should be separate, because a borrowing article requires a 2/3
Yep.
majority. So those should not be probably lumped together with articles that don't require.
No, they'll be like
Yeah.
articles.
And the thought process, maybe do it by department or some simple way of, so it makes some logical sense as to how
Right.
things are being grouped. But I think it's important to go ahead and put that right in the message at the top of the warrant that says, by the way, expect this going in, so that people are not confused when they get into the room.
Right, and the moderator is going to be very specific
Yeah.
about it, yeah.
Yeah, that process needs to be there.
Yep.
That was that. Other articles that people wanted to, anybody wanted to discuss at this point? Julianne?
I still have a real problem with Article 16, that $400,000 stabilization fund, which now that we're even hearing about the increased insurance costs and the uncertainty of, I mean, if the Department of Education goes away, how does that affect the education budget? In my mind, that should just be, a stabilization fund for any employee, not just the fire department. Or we just, if you want to make up the 1 point whatever million, that's $400,000 right there that is just going to sit there, right?
Well, the purpose of that article was to begin saving for the impact of the firefighters that were hired under the SAFER grant. If the title was any, it would just have to be appropriated under the same threshold. So that was the purpose of the article. I mean, if you're talking about changing it, it would take a 2/3 vote to change the purpose of the stabilization. But really, it could be used, and it would be available to town meeting to appropriate for any purpose. It's just in there with a higher threshold than in a majority vote that another article would usually take. If that helps you.
I'll try to translate. If we put the money aside in the stabilization, and then in 3 years, we wanted to use it for something different, town meeting has that ability.
They could,
Yes.
Well, my other concern with this is, setting aside money for those personnel who are hired under the SAFER grant, I think it's giving them a clear message that we're going to keep them on. And when we approve that grant, I know the fire chief said, this doesn't mean that in, 3 years?
3 years.
3 years, that we may be facing something like today, shortfalls everywhere. And I don't think it's fair to them to say, don't worry, we're setting aside money for you. Your job is guaranteed.
Right, well, but they are firefighters, so I mean, like, buildings are still gonna catch fire, there's gonna be car accidents, I mean, you can look at the chief reports and how busy they are on a constant basis, like, they needed that head count, the numbers backed it up, and I think that's part of the reason why they got the Safer grant approved, which was super, super competitive. So, times are tough, but I think that was kind of what we talked about throughout that process, was that we were going to start putting some money away to lessen some of the impact when those firefighters' salaries and benefits and everything come onto our budget and off the grant.
I don't remember that. I agree with Julianne. I don't remember that we talked originally about putting aside money for it. We were.
Oh, yeah, that
We were
was,
pretty well told that if you didn't have the money, well, that was too bad.
that was very, very much part of,
That's when we granted
yeah,
that.
that was very much part of the process. Laura?
The whole world has changed since that conversation, though, and there's so many other positions that
That
could-
might be.
could be
Yeah.
impacted by this.
What,
And
I think it is best for us to make decisions based upon the known, understanding that things could change. So right now, we know, we have hired those new firefighters.
I thought we just put offers out. Have they been hired already?
I think they need. I think
No,
they
we've
need-
hired them.
March, yeah, March, God, was it
With it-
23rd or something?
I
Yeah,
thought I
within a
saw-
couple
I-
weeks,
I saw-
yeah.
I
Yeah.
probably read
So
an old-
that's-
an old email.
Those are real.
Yes,
I mean,
no,
in
agree.
theory, we could probably vote to just rescind the offers and
No,
rescind the
that's not what
grant.
I'm
Right,
saying. That's not what
right,
I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that there's a lot of changes in
Yes.
federal funding,
So-
and I think earmarking money right now for one group, similar to what Julianne was saying, may hold our hands if there are other needs that come up for that
so
money.
it doesn't, because town meeting can change that. So the way I think about it is, right now, we know we are hiring new firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
We know that, we expect that the grant will continue to be funded for the next 3 years. If any of those things change, if our budget situation changes, with known changes, we adapt to that. If in 3 years, we are in an even more challenging budget situation than we are now, because some of the fears become realities, we can make those decisions then, when we have factual information. So I think the right thing to do is, the factual information is, we have a grant, we've hired these firefighters, put the money aside with the expectation that things will be okay, and then we'll have them, and if we just keep following that practice, we'll have the money to pay for them. If in 3 years, the tax situation, something horrible has happened, and we needed to change, and our priorities have changed, and we need to say, hey, it's a decision between keeping 8 firefighters and, keeping the financial offices open, or a number of teachers, or something like that, then those are difficult decisions to be made, but I'd rather make them when we have the facts rather than now.
I hear what
Rather
you're
than
saying.
say, it might be bad, so let's save money for the financial, or, whatever the other offices are. Let's save money for what we know the expenses are gonna be. And then in 3 years at town meeting, we can have an article that changes the purpose of that stabilization fund for something else if we need it at that point. And we could
Well,
even
we're
do
already
that next
saying
year or
that
the year
we're gonna-
after. Lisa?
We're already gonna be going into Prop 2.5 in 2026.
We
It's
don't,
next year.
we don't know that yet. That's what Jason is working on.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
very
either
unlikely
next year
that
or
we
the year
would,
after.
oh, I'm sorry.
So you've got that, and you also have a shortfall this year that you're gonna have to go out and take a loan for.
Not for operating budget, which is what we're talking about. You can't borrow money for operating funds.
Let me, if I wasn't clear, I said that we couldn't afford a 25% increase in health insurance without seeking an override and have level services at the same time. We're not going to have a 25% increase in health insurance. It'll be somewhat lower. So we're still working around the margins with that. But we will have a balanced budget that will not involve an override in '26. It was the question of, like, when we did the exercise over the summer, it was a question of 27 or 28 of when we would need to seek Proposition 2.5 relief and some semblance. So I think what Ms. Maselli had said was that we're facing a gap in the capital plan. We don't have enough free cash in the capital plan to fund all of the requests that came through, and it would involve issuing debt.
Yeah, and you have $400,000 that you could,
I think Jason and Steph will be working closely to figure out the prioritization of that. I think we've probably identified that the Blake Street project probably does not need to ask town meeting for 1.85. It can probably be a lower amount because of the grants and how that gets segmented about. That might help a little bit.
So we were, to Michael's point about identifying that article, I forget the number already, but I think the approach would be that we would recommend that article be funded with debt, as a debt authorization, in order to, if we're seeking grants, we can reduce the debt authorization by the grants as we go forward. But it would be an appropriation, and if we've got grants rather than, it would eliminate our need to actually borrow for that article.
Yeah. I think I expressed this when Lori was here, as I'd rather ask for the money that we expect that it should be. And one of the things that would do is it would get you closer to not being able to have to ask for debt for anything. I hope we can, get there, because particularly this year, I think going in with debt requests are going to be harder than typical. Scott Rogers has had his hand up for a little while. Scott, I'll bring in, if you could identify yourself, let us know what's on your mind.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Scott Rogers, 26 Tomahawk Drive. If kind of reacting to a couple of the comments from Julianne, if the worry is about having a named separate stabilization fund, and you're not looking to move forward for allocating the money specific for the SAFER grant, then at least please allocate the $400,000 to the general stabilization fund so that we are smoothing this firefighter's salary and can take that into effect so that we're not hit with the full 1.2 in the third year. So please set aside the money. If you don't like having it in a special stabilization fund, then put it into the normal stabilization fund.
I think the idea of the special stabilization fund is it's a way of sort of declaring the intent there, which is helpful, because if you put money in and start taking money out of the regular stabilization fund, I don't know what that might do to people looking at our books and saying, oh, they're saving, they're taking away, they're saving, they're taking away. If we say we're saving for a particular purpose, it's very clear all the way along that that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that is the preferred, going forward as proposed with the special stabilization fund is the preference of the Appropriations Committee. That's what's been discussed all along with respect to how to fund the salaries of the firefighters. So that was covered at our financial segment and other discussions about the SAFER grant.
Thanks, Scott.
I have a question. The SAFER grant is a federal grant, right?
Correct, yes.
Supposedly, the chief spoke to, the public safety in general seems to be safe at this point. I don't know. They're working continuously to get updates on all of the federal grants.
It is not one that I have seen threatened.
Right, and a lot of the federal grants that have been pulled or halted, most of it's unconstitutional. You can't do that. It was appropriated by Congress. So it's a matter of time before courts reinstate it. And then, assuming the executive branch will listen to the judicial branch, I guess we'll see. But so it does cause chaos and it causes shortfalls, but the money should be there. It probably will get there. It's just how much time and chaos in the in-between.
I appreciate your optimism. It's hard.
No.
It's so volatile.
We can only deal with facts as we know them, and
Right.
the fear is worth thinking about, but probably not worth acting upon.
The facts are financially very concerning.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well,
So we're going to be hit in a lot of different ways.
Yep. No, I think
So-
even without the federal stuff.
Yeah, the
we have
tariffs,
some serious.
The costs.
Yeah, the tariffs are not going to impact our operating budget, but they may impact capital items.
And our lives at home and our
Yep.
electricity.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Absolutely. All right.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, back to the warrant.
Okay, ready.
Any other comments or questions at this point on warrant articles as currently proposed?
None for me, thank you.
So this isn't for this warrant, but in the future, Article 24, which combines drainage
Sidewalks.
/ sidewalk improvement program. In the future, if we could have a dedicated article just for sidewalks, because we have heard from so many people that that's what they want. And I think lots of times when it's combined, the drainage, the culverts, all those things eat up the money, and then there's nothing left for sidewalks.
I agree completely that I think, we have stated as a board, we want to expand the number of sidewalks in town. So starting a couple of years ago, I know this was put in as drainage / sidewalks with the intent of, we'll add some sidewalks, but if we have a culvert failure, we'll use the money for that instead.
Well, that's
And
safety.
that happens all the time.
Right, it does give you that flexibility.
Right, yeah.
So I think it's nice to have the flexibility. Ideally, not for this year, ideally, I'd like to say, we have a sidewalk item. And separate from that, we somehow fund culverts should they fail, one way or the other, because we need to address those when they happen.
Right.
But I want to make sure we keep building sidewalks and not saying, well, we were going to do a sidewalk this year, but we can't, because 2 out of 3 years, that's what happens.
Okay.
Maybe they would consider taking away a vehicle if a culvert failed.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
yeah, I think that's, bigger discussions than would
Yeah.
need to take place this year. But one way or another, I'd like there to be an item in future years that just says sidewalks, and it's for new sidewalks.
Okay.
And have a plan, and make sure we keep moving that forward. And we can make a conscious decision to not fund it some year if the budget isn't good. But we should have that as a recurring item. Lisa, you've got your hand up.
Well, I agree with what Julianne's saying on 24. 23 says roadway improvements and maintenance. And what are the roadways that are included? I mean, I think it'd be great to have those listed, because people often ask for that. What roads are going to be done, what's expected to be done. And then if you get into, always having this, I thought we had money put aside for, or even a grant for the culverts. Wasn't there specifically something for the culverts?
Was there an earmark? There was an earmark for Assabet Hill.
It was an earmark for Assabet Hill for design work.
Well, that's a different one, but I thought there was one in general, because the Assabet, that was the other one I was going to go to, is the
Drainage and
Assabet
roadways.
drainage. I thought we got an earmark last year for that, to
That's
help
Article
defray some of that, but it doesn't show.
Yeah, if there was an earmark grant, it wouldn't flow through the warrant. It would be outside of the town meeting appropriation.
Yeah, the only thing is the Assabet Hill drainage and roadway.
I mean,
Yes, it was specifically for that.
having been the accountant, I recall there having been some earmarked style grants in the past. I think we had some federal earmarks related to some of the capital projects. Off the top of my head, I don't remember them, but they're not significant compared to what the requests have been coming through.
Right, it's probably not $100,000, but
No.
Right.
it might be 90 or something. But, I mean, does that bring that other 920,000 down? And then I guess the question was, how, if you knew you had to do it, and it was 530 and you waited, and now it's 920, it might be a new project to not wait for stuff if you can juggle around some money because of just the cost of years of waiting. And I guess the next question I would ask, I was actually going to go to at appropriations or maybe even finances. What's the term life of given to the fleet? Like, is it a 10-year? I see some things coming in 20-year vehicles, 20 years old, 16 years old, 15 years old. What's the actual life expectancy of these 1-ton trucks and 20-ton dump trucks? Do you know, Jace?
Well, I know I would recommend everybody go and find the Financial Planning Committee presentation that the Public Works Director gave. Similar to this body, one thing I've been proud of this year is that we've been putting the packets online as early as we can, but we've been putting them online for everything that's discussed at the meeting is available from the web online to the public. I think there's a pretty lengthy lifespan for those trucks. They change. Scott has a vehicle management plan whereby Scott, the DPW director, will change the use of a truck, and it's a frontline vehicle, and then it becomes a paving truck, and we get the useful life out of every single one of the vehicles through his plan, whereby it's in pretty bad shape by the time it's time to trade in, and basically has scrap value at the end of its life. So some could be 20 years.
Okay. One of the two of the trucks looked like it may not pass inspection. And they're pretty pricey. How much would it cost to fix whatever it had to pass inspection?
Scott isn't here to be
Right,
able to
and-
answer that, so.
Okay.
don't know.
So, I mean, that would be, I'll go to the next meeting and ask about that, but.
All set,
All right.
Lisa?
That's it for now, for me.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
On Article 54, the accessory dwelling unit, just kind of in general, thought I had was is there anything in the article or thought to, like, what's stopping someone from adding that unit, but then renting it or like Airbnb-ing it? As opposed to like, well, we think people are going to use it for grandma or mom.
Think we have any ability to, I think that's state law now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're very specific in the law. And now you don't have to actually live in a home. It started out that you had to live in the main house and then, but now, yeah,
Now you can rent out both.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to make these changes based on state law.
Yep, the state's, yeah, so August 6th was the date that it was revised by Healy, the Affordable Homes Act. So within the act is the law of, the square foot area and, who you can rent it to. It has to be a permanent, rental situation. It can't be an Airbnb.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it goes on and on.
But you can Airbnb your own home, right?
That would be the primary, though. I think like the ADU that you're building that's under a separate rules.
Speaking of which, do we get any taxes or anything from Airbnb?
We do. I don't think we get much, but, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's distinguishable from our hotel motel income, but there is a process for the short-term rental providers to have, to register with the state and pay a tax.
I think Airbnb settled a lawsuit with the state a couple of years ago, and now Airbnb collects the hotel motel tax
Yeah.
at the time of rental of a unit, and Airbnb, the company, then writes a check periodically to the state with the reporting. The state gets, and then they give us the money.
We get our tax returns through the state, so it's private information, what's made up of those tax returns. So we get an amount quarterly for hotel motel tax and meals tax and so forth. So those come through the state, but we don't necessarily know who the end users that are paying tax returns to the state within that number.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember how I ran across that just a couple of months ago, the Airbnb thing. No, I don't rent my house out for
fortuitous.
Airbnb. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. So I think all we've done is we've done some reordering, and then we're adding the historic restriction for White Cliffs as an additional article, wherever that goes.
Yep,
Yeah,
and,
wherever it goes, it
yeah,
goes.
reordering
Yeah.
yeah.
So are we are we good at that point to close the warrant?
Well, I thought you were gonna get the numbers for the budget.
Yeah, I mean, that's
budget
separate,
numbers?
that's separate from closing the warrant, but I do wish we had more numbers at this point.
I think
Is there any way we can wait for the
Jason and
next
Steph
meeting?
do too.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah,
I'm sorry, Lisa, I couldn't hear what you said.
Is there any way we can wait for the next meeting? I mean, most of the stuff will be done by then, so.
So closing the warrant is a statement that says we don't want anything new. And I think that's a good thing to say at this point.
And actually, yeah, we have to set it according to town code, X amount of days before town meeting, so you'd only have until like the 19th or something, but,
Okay.
so
we should-
I would close it now, and then it could be reopened if anything happened, but, yeah, we have a lot. We have 52 articles, or how many? 54. Nope, 60. Do I
61,
hear
'cause
70?
61, because we added.
Yep,
Yep,
yep.
all right. All right, so I agree, we should, closing it at this point is the right step. Hopefully by our next meeting, we'll get a lot more information as far as where we are with both operating and capital and any borrowing articles and things like that.
Right.
I know those are hard questions to answer, so I'm
Yeah,
not,
it's just,
not gonna
I
drop out
mean,
of
the
the sky.
numbers would just be,
Yeah,
they wouldn't be solid, and,
yep.
yeah.
Is appropriations in finance done now with the numbers to make
No.
recommendation?
No, that's what we're waiting for, so tomorrow night, is it police
Yeah,
and fire?
It's police, fire, and actually Dana from Cable is going to be there as well because he's got a capital article for a server.
Yep, the
That's
server.
on the warrant,
Okay.
which, is not coming from free cash, so it's not affecting that. We have that targeted to come from the cable fund. So tomorrow night is going to be the last round of presentations from departments to financial planning. And then there's a number of other meetings still to discuss their recommendations and reports.
Okay.
Yep.
And are those packets online already?
Tomorrow's packet is online.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you for doing that.
Wednesday's packet is not.
I think we'll have enough
Wonder,
reading for now.
would the board benefit by having those packets sent to us or an email sent to us when they're posted?
I do get them sent to me, but I'm a liaison.
Okay, okay.
So I appreciate it.
Yep.
No, I think it's easy enough to find.
Okay. Okay, very good. So
Thank you.
is there a motion to close the April 28th, 2025 town meeting warrant?
Oh, yes, Mr. Chair. I move the board vote to close the April 28th, 2025 town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made by Julianne, seconded by Laura. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Julianne?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. We've got a warrant.
Yay.
Yep. Next up, approved town administrator review process and evaluation form. I'm going to suggest that maybe we hold one more meeting on this. There was,
Yeah.
Steph did a great job of putting together our comments and suggestions, but it did not encompass the review of goals,
Yeah,
which was sort of
have
a top
question-
level.
See, I thought those were separate from that form, like kind of a part two, like here's the goals
Yeah.
and da-da-da. And, yeah, I should.
But we need to approve the whole thing, because the whole thing is review. So I think, from quickly reading, I think everything you did is great. We just need sort of
Okay,
a overall, like, here's how the whole thing ties together.
correct.
for that.
And I was thinking, after your email to Linda, that we could do, section 1 and then section 2, so it's connected, but I'm still, yeah.
Figure that out. I
Yeah.
don't think it's that hard. So first question, does anyone have any comments or concerns on what Steph provided?
No, I like the way you wrote the.
Do you, okay,
the
was
NA
that
section.
understandable?
Yep, I
Okay.
thought that's really clear, so it won't affect the overall goal. And I was looking back, I don't remember what the other questions were, but I didn't have anything else that jumped
I'm
out.
still confused on the goals that were agreed upon.
There were a lot of them.
I know.
And and I brought that up at the time we agreed to them.
So am I going to write all of those down on a,
Yes,
and then it's the same rating scale, 1 to 5?
correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, yeah, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Feel free to bounce ideas off me if you want.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that one, so next time we'll deal with that, so no motion on that tonight.
But, so under supervision, number 8, we talked about this last time.
Oh, yeah.
And so how,
So basically, I said, I have no qualms about solicited feedback from department heads or whatnot, but I can't make them because some people might be uncomfortable with it because I'm their boss. So
It's not their job to review you.
it isn't,
Yes,
right, and it's not even part of this process. I was just offering it, just, because I don't, to your point, I don't know how you would evaluate that question, but,
well, it was a part of the general evaluation form that we received, so it must be something people do.
but I think it was kind of in general, like, have you heard that, a department head complaining, like, oh, she never answers her phone, oh, she, never lets me in her office, like, I think it's more overall feedback of, you walk in here and you can tell if we have a good working relationship, or if, I think it was more broad, it wasn't soliciting feedback, because that's not, and actually, to tell you the truth, I don't even think it might be appropriate to do that. I was offering it, but,
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think it's,
yeah,
some ability for us to see, does anyone have any input for the board on review? And-
Right.
And I'm not expecting that every department head will provide a
Right.
form to us. It's,
right,
if somebody wants to provide something that they think will be helpful for us, I think they should be able to do that.
right,
Structured, I think you suggested do it through Di,
yes.
which
Yep.
makes sense. She's the HR person. That is good. I think we all trust
And
her.
that's how we're going to do it. It
I-
goes through Diane.
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what
definitely.
we should do.
Because truthfully, then, if we don't do it something, we
Yep.
shouldn't have Section 8.
I think that getting feedback will help with that, but I think we have some, it's always a hard thing to do, because we are not within the organization at that level.
Right.
But some of this is going to be, well, if we know of a problem, if something occurred, we
Right.
want the ability to review based upon that. It may turn out that
But see,
things
that's
just seem
a
fine.
fine
Yeah,
line too, because there's personnel issues that could happen, and those personnel issues should not come out.
Right.
So it's like,
yep.
it's, yeah, it's a fine line.
And not something for this, and not to get sidetracked, but like in other corporate environments, there's always employee opinion surveys and rating your your immediate manager, department, all the way up.
Right.
Is there something that's done like that in the municipal world, or do we do any like anonymous sort of, even if it was non-binding to a review, just to
So
kind of.
Diane is the assistant town administrator / HR director.
Right.
So any issues would go to her.
Not so much specific
What?
issues, just to kind of get a temperature of town staff. Like they would, in the corporate world, they're using these things to get a temperature of
Well,
employee
yeah.
satisfaction.
So
Just-
that's why I offered it. Hopefully, it will work and,
Yeah, we'll try it.
Right.
I've never found a good way of solving that item. That's section 8,
Yeah,
the supervision
it is.
item. It's just hard, it's hard to do. It's hard to do even in a corporate environment where there isn't a charter that provides a legal line between what we can and
Right.
can't do. It's even a little bit harder here. But, I mean, I know what organizations do, employee satisfaction surveys, ESATs. And, maybe there's some value in, at some point, doing something kind of sort of like that. Not this year, not for this review. It's way too late
No,
to even
that's
think
not what I
about
was
that.
suggesting,
But,
yeah.
but I would want to see what have other organizations done and see what is legal to do without violating the charter or anything like that. I think it's just a hard, I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
It's just a hard thing to sort out.
I didn't run it by
Yeah.
town council or labor council, but
Yeah.
I'm good with it as long as it stays light and fluffy and, and I can't, again, make them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'll work with Steph in finalizing the sort of top level of the review process, and we'll have that on our next agenda.
Yeah.
Reports. Lisa, any reports tonight?
Well, I do have a few reports. I have been in some places. My Life in Time, musical song. Okay, I attended the February 24th meeting, following the 24th meeting request for feedback from Northborough Cable. I was checking to see if you did get anything back from Dana on having the Housing Authority be able to go to the library to have their meetings. I talked with Rita, the chairman, and she said she would be interested in that, would like more information on it, because many of the public that is in the facility does not necessarily get out and could watch on the YouTube. I did record their meeting because they didn't have a way of recording, and she did get a microphone, but it's still difficult to hear what they're talking about, and sometimes even the description of things were a little bit confusing. I asked Ron to explain a couple things again at the end of the meeting. One of the questions I had too about the Housing Authority is what part of, in this case, Village Drive belongs to the town and what part belongs to the state? And pretty much the whole thing belongs to the state. And so I would like some sort of way of finding out really what the hierarchy is for these senior housings, because we have a board, but the board doesn't really have any control because the state has control. So if we could get some more information on that and maybe even share that, I think that would be a great help.
Could you, because that's a complicated question, could you maybe send that to Steph?
Yeah,
As
I
a
know what you
question?
mean, Lisa. It is, it's a little convoluted, and I almost have it in my head, but I don't want to say it if I'm not sure.
And I would like the answers to that too, because I don't know the delineation as to how that works. I think it would be
Very
helpful.
confusing, and then, we give land away that's town land, and it then goes to the state. So, it's pretty crazy. So, yeah, do you want me to just drop you a note, Steph, or?
Yeah, just email me. I have it written here. Just say, breakdown of housing authority versus state versus town. I got it.
And then if we could get some information about the library and Dana, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I
so,
also
sorry, go ahead.
went to a couple of different meetings. I attended the Kindness Coffee with Police Chief Griffin at Arrow Coffee. I attended the Economic Development meeting with Laura and Mitch and the other folks from the Finance Committee and the Appropriations Committee, with 3 presenters about the TIF designations. I attended the IFTAMIA, we talked about that, holding at their final at Ramadan, and it was a very nice event. I did have a resident there talk to me about his sidewalk, and I mentioned it earlier about the Davis Street sidewalk that they've been waiting and asking for the past 5 years about, so maybe that might be something we could look into. And I also attended the Blake Street Community Outreach. And I still have concerns about the need, the expense, who's going to take care of this area once it's put together, because it's not taken care of now, and there's a lot of vandalism that continues to go on down there. So I think that's something that I'd like to know more about. Who will maintain it, because they're not doing it now. And I've had several people ask me about doing audits of department audits. That would be a natural thing every 5 years. And might be something we might want to start looking into with all the departments. And that's my reports for the week. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lisa. Laura, reports tonight.
Thank you. Similar to what Lisa mentioned, I attended the Blake Street beautification session, which was hosted, as well as the economic forum with I'm drawing a blank on who was there all of a sudden, but I really appreciated the collaboration from Marlborough on some ideas for what we can do together economically. I wanted to congratulate Allie. She received the winner of the Allie Lane from Parks and Recreation. She was the winner of the Massachusetts Recreation and Park Association's Special Citation, and she received that award for the Women's Softball League that was formed with 5 towns. She also wanted I also wanted to let the rest of my board members know that the Northborough Recreation received the 2025 award for they were the recipient of the 2025 Massachusetts Recreation and Park Association's Regional Community Impact of the Year Award for the Central Mass. This award is given to a town or city that is a member of the MRPA and has provided outstanding service and dedication to their community since 2024. And the 3 towns were recognized. And RecConnect is brought to you through Tri-Town Partnership with Northborough, Southborough, and Shrewsbury. And I am really cutting this down a lot, but congratulations to Allie and the recreation team that made all of this work possible in these recognitions. And I'm sorry I did a horrible job articulating that message. I also got to attend the iftar, which was hosted on Friday by Crescent Connections, with several people from the Muslim organization in town to celebrate part of their Ramadan together. I really appreciate that invitation and the warm welcome to learn more about that celebration. And then I will be attending the cybersecurity event that's going to be hosted on May 8th through the MMA. And that concludes my reports.
Great, thank you. Julianne, any reports tonight?
So, yes, I received an email from a resident who observed that we don't have any recyclable trash bins. You know how many towns have waste and then recyclables? And I was hoping that we could talk about that at a future meeting, but also I think this points to the fact that we really need to have a serious conversation about making Sustainable Northborough a town committee, because I think those are the kinds of things that they would be happy to help us with. There probably are grants for something like that. And Amy Paretsky sent us an email late today. I think her suggestion is really important, that we all look at the final report from the Town Hall Feasibility Committee, which had a lot of information about the buildings that we have to find a use for. And that's it for my report.
Mike, any reports tonight?
Yes, so from the Youth Commission, they have a new chairperson, Erica Zeiger, so congratulations, Erica.
Congratulations, Erica.
And a new member, Judy Boyle, has joined and attended the meeting, so that's great. They plan to recruit 1 to 2 youth liaisons, hopefully by the end of the school year. And the committee is looking forward to assisting our HHS department for outreach and programs. School committee, K through 8. The school calendar approval will be this Wednesday, the 12th, at a combined school committee meeting at the high school at 5:30. And there'll be a special public hearing on Zoom for the FY26 budget on Tuesday, March 25th. So a little update there. From the Cemetery Commission, per Scott, it's all quiet.
Oh, my gosh.
That's literally what he said. I was going to respond too quiet, but I'm like, I don't want to.
Oh, that's funny.
But, and then kind of something a little bit random, but I had, and Stephanie, I know you've been CC'd on some of these emails that I sent to you and Diane. But I ran into a gentleman kind of randomly. He's kind of like a Civil War historian. He's written a number of books. Apparently there is a book specific to Northborough residents and the Civil War from another gentleman. But he had a way, and I forget the exact details on it, of looking up records that tend to get missed, particularly naval records, where they would assign usually just the state you were from, not the town, but he had a database that there were a number of Northborough residents who served in the United States Navy during the Civil War, who sometimes get missed in recognition on town documents and things like that. But then also came across a name, and I had never heard of this, of a William Ellis, who was listed as coming from Northborough, a farmer who was in the 70th U.S. Colored Infantry. So an African-American who fought for the Union in the Civil War. So I would love to get more information. I just have this one little bit that he sent me. I'm not, would love, hopefully work with Historical Commission or even our Veterans Office or whoever who can maybe suss out some more information on
Norm
that.
Corbin or someone else there, I think would love to have that information or might be able to add to it. I don't know.
Yeah. So hopefully more to come there, because I know obviously we're gearing up for 250th celebration of the Revolution, and then a while yet to get to 250 years for the Civil War. But still, I think honoring the past from the sacrifices of our ancestors is always important. So, that concludes it. Yes.
Great, thank you very much. I will mention the Northborough Education Foundation is having the annual trivia night at Cyprian Keys, Friday, April 4th at 7 p.m. I attend that every year, and some years, including this year, I'll be helping out. Anyone who wants to register for a seat or a table to participate, northboroughed.org with the long spelling of Northborough. Really a fun event. I also attended the community iftar at Algonquin on Friday night. Ramadan Mubarak to all those who celebrate. The holiday of Ramadan continues for another couple of weeks, and then ends in Eid al-Fitr. I think and hope I'm pronouncing that properly. The library's audiovisual system that we funded partially with ARPA back a few months ago is being installed right now, and I think it'll probably take another week or so to button up all the details. The first major event that's going to be taking place there and using the new PA system is something that the library is hosting for a judicial outreach. Let me go to a different page that has that. The library is hosting Judicial Outreach Month, where an Associate Justice of the State Appeals Court, the Honorable Christopher Hodgins, is going to be presenting and taking questions on how the state judicial system works. That is Monday, March 17th at 4 p.m. at the library. They are requesting that people RSVP in advance through the library's event participation system, and there's a field in there to send a question in advance. Is their request for that, so that he can properly prepare. That's going to be really interesting. I've never attended a presentation like that. I think it's something that the state judicial system is doing that is new, and Northborough is lucky enough to be able to be one of the hosts of that event.
Yeah.
And that ends my report. Steph, any reports tonight?
Tomorrow morning, I have my department head meeting, which will be buttoning up some projects, so I'll be emailing you. The articles, very glad those are over with, I think. And working on the budget. Was it last Friday we met? Jason and I met with the Inspector General, Jeffrey Shapiro, about, ways to stay safe financially, protect against fraud. So it was interesting. We went back and forth for a while. We talked about the tariffs. We talked about prevailing wage and, thresholds. And so yeah, that was an interesting visit. Yeah, other than that,
Great.
business as usual.
All right. Future agenda items. Is there anything that anyone wishes to add to an upcoming agenda that's not already in our upcoming agendas?
So
section?
we have Sustainable Northborough, we have a discussion about economic development, whether or not we're going to have a committee, and we have to discuss how we're going to go about discussing use for West Main in the fire station.
Yep. So Steph sent me
A charge.
sort of an initial charge. We have to work on that a little bit. Hopefully at our next meeting, we'll get that ready for consideration by the board for the 4 West Main and
The fire.
the current fire station. Reuse committee, I think that's looking good to get done pretty soon. I suspect the Economic Development Committee and Sustainability Committee might need to wait until after town meeting, given the things that you've got between
Yeah,
now and then.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them are contingent upon any action at town meeting.
Right.
But I am,
Oh, we've
speaking for
been-
myself, I'm very supportive of both.
And we've been talking about it for
Yeah.
at least 2 years.
Yeah, no, I think each of them have some things you need to work on to make them happen, but
Right,
I think they're
yeah.
workable.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we get town meeting first to keep her focused.
Sure. And I just have one other comment. I think that whole discussion with Lori about the grants, I feel like somehow we should prioritize projects and which ones we should apply for grants. I mean, kudos to Lori, she took the initiative to do it for that project, but, are there some of the public works projects that,
Yeah, like, for instance, I had met with Kerry Salwa from CMRPC, so there were a few, like the vacant storefront program, a one-stop mass development grant for business owners. It gives them tax credits up to $50,000. And there's other economic grants that are available if we're not involved in the building. So I reached out to a couple of her liaisons through the grant, so hopefully I can get more information and be able to market it in the right way for any prospective business that's interested in either 4 West Main or White Cliffs or wherever. And actually, we're working on a vacant inventory list so we can have it on our website. If any developer, investors interested, we will have all of the information set. So she has her junior planners working on that right now, so it'll just be.
Carrie or?
Carrie Selwa
Oh,
for
that's great.
CMRPC. Right, just so at the, click of a link, you'll have all the vacant properties, including 4 West Main, whatnot. So, yeah.
That's super helpful.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
CMRPC has some things that we could probably take more advantage of, I feel like.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have any other items for upcoming agendas? Mentioning sustainability and Economic Development Commission made me think of one thing, a question for you probably, Jason. I think every committee gets a small budget, or at least maybe $500 or something like that per year. Am I remembering that right?
Upped it to 1,000 a few
Oh,
years
yeah,
ago, didn't
yeah.
we?
Well, not every committee has a budget. The financial planning doesn't have a budget.
Okay.
Financial planning committee doesn't have any appropriation in the town budget.
Okay.
Some of the budgets are, were increased to $1,000 in the past year. I think Cultural Council, Community Affairs, and Historic District Commission all were increased from 500 to 1,000 a couple of years ago. But yeah, not every committee has a budget.
Is that, within the budget that's getting to Sustainability and Economic Development Commission, thinking about if we create them in the near future, but after town meeting, is that one line item in the budget that has all committees, or are they broken down?
They're broken down as their own committees.
Okay. But the town meeting appropriation is broken down also?
No, it's
Okay.
within, it would be within, I think what's Article 8 now, that we have a table that has a
Yep.
list of all the appropriations
Yep.
that are contained within that,
Yep.
that roll up to the entire
Right.
amount that's voted at town meeting.
Okay.
So we're not voting the individual appropriations at town meeting
Right,
for,
right.
for the annual operating budget, but it is laid out, and it is an individual appropriation that's
committee.
underlied by that number.
Do we want to, not that I want to increase our budget at all, but increase by $2,000 to try to fund a sustainability committee and an economic development committee
I would
in
say-
anticipation of,
Well, what is the $30,000 earmark being used for?
Well, Lori wants to use it toward, well, wasn't it toward the Blake Street project? Or
It's kind of
no?
a backstop if not all the money is appropriated.
Right, yeah.
Is that way they can still meet the 10% thresholds and still get?
I'm just thinking, if we anticipate that we will be creating these committees, so that they can do some work, to have a token budget for next year, whether it would make sense to,
I would say they're not even formed yet.
they're not formed yet, but I think from reading from discussions that have taken place, there is interest in forming them.
Well, let's just form them first, and then we'll fund them.
Okay, but if we form,
I agree with Stephanie.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking because we're talking about budget. And
And also, any committee, there's also town staff time that's beyond the $1,000,
Sure.
right? I mean, there's.
Oh,
town
gosh,
staff
yeah.
Be in the meetings, especially depending on the committee. I don't know if town staff does minutes for certain committees and stuff like that. So I mean, that does add up too. If we're adding additional committees, that's additional workload.
I just want to make sure if we decide that we want those committees, they can actually do some work, and we don't create them in July and say you
Yeah.
can't do anything or anything of substance because you don't have any funding. But we may have some funding available for these that we might be able to use.
I'm thinking if there's a good ROI on the proposal, I think we'll be
Yeah.
able to find the money.
Yeah, okay, just thinking out loud while we're
Really
talking about
creative
this.
people who
Yeah.
can work on very thin budgets.
Okay.
To help us.
I withdraw the suggestion.
Sorry.
Well, eventually, we're going to have to discuss that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
So might as well start thinking about it.
Okay, good. Public comment, is there anyone in person or remotely that wishes to comment on anything at all of business before the select board, before we close out tonight? Seeing no hands up, going once, going twice, I declare public comment closed. Is there any other business to come before the board? Uh-oh.
So Mr. Chase spoke to us today about many things, but one of which is the concern by a lot of residents about the number of vehicles that we purchase every year. And I'm sure that there's a legitimate reason to do that. But I think that to serve the community better, if we had a list of, how many fire engines we have, how old they are, how many police cars we have.
Yeah, we have that, yep.
I think that would help people understand more. Well, all these cars have 200,000 miles on them, so yeah, it's probably.
That was in the economic summit.
I thought it was the capital plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't attend that. That was the recent one?
No, are you talking about
The one that,
Tim?
Tim, yeah, previous town.
Yeah, that
administrator.
was, that was last August or something?
the financial summit.
Financial summit, that's
Yeah.
the word.
So within the instructions for the capital plan that went out to departments, they were to include a fleet list of the age of their vehicles and some basic information about each one of those vehicles and their status. That should be in the financial planning packets for the meeting that the department heads attended. So that the question, the answer to that question could be answered by looking at that packet and seeing
Excellent.
those fleet lists.
Okay.
It's not consolidated in one place. It's in by each department, but you could look there.
Okay.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made by Laura, seconded by Julianne to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. We are adjourned 10:17 PM. Thank you very much. I will make note for cable that the clock that's superimposed on the meeting says 10:08, so it